Hold on. There you go.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. One second. I see two of me. I can hear you, but let me.
Wonderful.
There
I
we
see
go.
myself.
Do you see yourself
How are you
twice
doing?
or just once?
Just once. Well, I see the portrait mode, and then I see the what do you call it? The landscape mode.
Oh, okay. I see that too. Oh, I can hide it. Okay. Perfect. Perfect. What is going on, Nick? How are you doing tonight?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good, man. I know this was extremely last minute, and I can't do nothing but appreciate you, bro, because we have been talking behind the scenes for a couple of weeks trying to get this thing going. And I keep on missing your messages. And so I'm so and vice versa as well. I feel like I catch you while you're busy, you catch me while I'm busy. But I'm so
For
glad we
sure.
was able to get together and get this thing going.
Yeah, absolutely. And congratulations, on your second child.
Man, I appreciate it. Thank you so much. But I gave you a little breakdown for our community as far as who you are from what I've been reading. But I would love to hear you gas yourself up, break down who you are, give us a break, your background story, who you are, everything in general.
For sure. Okay. Yeah. So, I'm Nick Brooks. I go by Nick, and I'm a California attorney. I live and work in San Diego, California, and I primarily practice civil litigation. So, I do some criminal stuff every now and then when it intersects with civil litigation, but a lot of my work involves filing like pleadings, motions, drafting things of that nature with courts. And, some of the things that like the Candace Owens saga's been involved with is like defamation. So that's in my wheelhouse and like the civil litigation aspect. We're dealing with the Tyler Robinson criminal trial and things like that. That's a little bit more of a criminal litigator. Like I can provide some commentary because I had to pass the bar, right? Like we all got to study for it. But yeah, no, it's just I really enjoy learning the law. Always like I mean, even though I'm a lawyer, it's like you're still learning things, like because things are always developing. But yeah, no, and I went to Rutgers Law School, as you can see behind me. I was born and raised in Tennessee. And I just kind of, I found that a lot of the Candace Owens commentators, they want to hear from some like legal perspectives on some
Yeah.
different stuff. And I've been able to kind of fill that gap and provide, my own thoughts. And with that, it's like, I do my own like solo practice in San Diego. So with that, I run my own YouTube channel. And so, running my own YouTube channel has been fun to grow. So, please give me a subscribe if you're watching too.
Definitely. I shared your channel earlier before you got on. And so, I happened to man, you popped up in my algorithm one day. I forgot how, but that's how I came across your page. You popped up across my algorithm, and I saw it was one of your live streams where you were kind of breaking down one of Candace's. It might have been the NDA. You might have did a video a while ago that was about one of
Okay.
Candace's NDAs. And when I first clicked that, and I actually shared it on one of the we call it Yappisodes over here for episodes, but I shared it one night and I was like, man, this is a great video, great insight. And I started following your content ever since. And again, I appreciate the legal perspective where it's just, all of the outside noise is eliminated and let's just get straight to what you see on paper. And I started following your stuff and hearing your different breakdowns of everything, and I was like, bro, that would be amazing to hear that side one day. So that's how I came across your page, and I started looking
Yeah.
at your stuff, sub to the channel, and started looking at your stuff ever since. And man, I'm excited. I'm excited to break it down. I know you got a hard stop tonight, so I definitely want to get kind of right into it as far as I don't know which approach you want to take as far as her lawsuits with Brian Harper. I know you broke that down before. And also one of the main things tonight is as much as you can is the Tyler Robinson case. Whether you can
Okay. So I
break it
guess we
down.
can just kind of set the facts, or yeah, give some
Yeah,
factual and procedural, context to what we're speaking about. So first
absolutely.
things first, when it comes to the Candace Owens Brian Harple case, Brian Harple has brought a lawsuit in the Middle District of Tennessee, which is a federal court in Tennessee. And he has sued for defamation with respect to some of Candace Owens' commentary on her channel related to, she alleged that he was involved in like conspiring on the death of Charlie Kirk, Brian Harple being involved on that death, visited Fort Huachuca and things like that. Those are some of the factual allegations. But yeah, he claimed that this was, serious criminal misconduct that he was being alleged to have done by virtue of committing those allegations. And in addition, it would be professional misconduct because, it implicates both by virtue of saying you conspired to kill the guy you were supposed to be protecting that day at UVU. So that's what he's brought his lawsuit in the Middle District of Tennessee for under those specific facts. Some people question if it can go forward. I've seen some commentary online about, some people think it should be dismissed for different reasons. But, on its face, I think there is like defamation per se, met on its face, prima facie, as they say. And then, that's just the Brian Harple case, though. So we got Candace Owens v. Brian Harple in the Middle District of Tennessee. It's a defamation case. And then we also have in the Delaware Superior Court, which is a Delaware State Court. So we got Tennessee Federal Court, but now we're dealing with Delaware State Court. And in the Delaware State Court, the Macrones have also sued for defamation. And their theory of defamation is also defamation per se, meaning the nature of the statements, meaning their serious criminal misconduct and professional misconduct. Well, here then we're not dealing with professional misconduct with the Macrones, but we're dealing with serious criminal misconduct because not only do we have these allegations of her calling Brigitte Macron a man, which that's not defamation per se, actually, that's just going to be defamation. But when it comes to this criminal misconduct, such as like conspiring to, kill certain people in the world for political reasons, I suppose, that can get you in trouble. And the Macrones brought a lawsuit in Delaware State Court for that. And so I looked it up earlier on the docket. They had a motion to dismiss in that case that was, heard about a week ago. And it's still, the judge has not posted an order on that. So maybe he's still writing it. Maybe the law clerk's, still writing it. But that's what's going on in that case. So we got, the Brian Harple, Candace Owens, Tennessee Federal Court, Macrones, Candace Owens, and Delaware State Court. And then Tyler Robinson is a criminal trial, or it's not at a trial yet, but it's a criminal case that's advancing in the Utah State Court. And so not federal court, but state court. And so this is all state authorities in Utah. So we're applying state law and things of that nature for purposes of adjudicating that lawsuit. And obviously, as you know, Tyler Robinson's been alleged to have, killed Charlie Kirk at UVU September 10th of last year.
Right. Okay. And so with the Brian Harbaugh case, the biggest thing, and yes, I've watched, a lot of Candace Owens' content. So I definitely have heard her side of everything. So with the Brian Harbaugh case, it's hard to, I guess, understand the side of Candace has accused him of doing something to Charlie or having a role that day, because she has avoided that kind of verbiage and language since
for sure
she started this whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of confusing hearing Brian Harbaugh say, "Oh, she's accusing me of this," and she said this on her podcast when she hasn't accused him of anything.
Yes.
And then what was also weird is, this is kind of outside of the case, but Brian Harbaugh said it with his words on another podcast that he chose to come out and start talking on the Sean Ryan show. He chose to come out and say his side because Candace was spewing different lies about him, but everybody has already pulled it up as far as the facts. And he came out on that podcast and told his story before Candace even mentioned his name at all. So his lawsuit is kind of confusing because she hasn't really ever said Brian Harbaugh did this. In actuality, he has people on the internet that I won't mention any names on here, but they have by name said that he did it. And this person has never, ever heard from Brian Harbaugh. Nobody has ever been, fed legal papers by Brian Harbaugh, except Candace, who has never really mentioned that.
Yeah. So, and if just to, if we're recalling correctly, I believe Mitchell Snow is also named in the Brian Harple lawsuit, and
Yeah.
there is a conspiracy allegation. And so we're dealing with civil conspiracy, not criminal conspiracy, but a
Okay.
conspiracy, we have conspiracy theories and then we have like conspiracy in the context of law. There's just two different meanings in a sense, but in the context of law, when we're dealing with a conspiracy, that just means an agreement. So we have a civil agreement that Brian Harple has alleged between Candace Owens and Mitchell Snow. And the purpose, he says, of that civil agreement was to, rake in views and rake in reputational gain, maybe potentially financial gain and stuff, just because, sensational allegations like conspiracy to commit murder and all these different actors, it would drive a lot of traffic, and when you got two professional seeming people talking about it, that would be, Brian Harple's kind of theory is a civil conspiracy aspect. So where, I know you mentioned Candace Owens has used certain verbiage to basically say, look what this person says, and then she puts it on her channel, right? And so
Right.
she's kind of using the other person, without getting into, I guess, principal agent. The theory would just be a civil agreement to, promote those allegations, and she would have been affirmatively stating those. And there is a theory of liability for civil, conspiracy in the defamation context, so that would be how I'd respond to that, I suppose.
Okay. And then let's just say you were, Brian Harpaugh's, I guess you're trying the case with Brian Harpaugh and you're representing him. In your opinion, do you feel like he has a valid case that could win out in court based on kind of the facts that he's presented in there, and also the things that we've talked about now, as far as like Candace Owens not necessarily mentioning his name, but like you said, she's bringing on other people and their content, insinuating that she may think the same.
Yeah, ultimately, like, do I think Brian Harple can be successful? I think there's a lane, yeah, he can be successful, but I don't think it's a guarantee because if I were arguing on behalf of Brian Harple, I would really try to emphasize that you accused me of criminal misconduct. Like I know there's professional misconduct, but I would really be zeroing in on criminal misconduct because, the allegations are that she's alleged him of been involved in this criminal misconduct by have involved in killing Charlie Kirk. So I'm going to try to point at that because that gets me defamation per se. And again, if I can just prove you said it, I don't have to prove damages because defamation per se, generally like under defamation law, you have to prove your damages when you recover. Like, okay, well, what did you suffer reputational loss? But if there's certain forms of speech like serious criminal misconduct, which Brian Harple has alleged he was committed, if he shows that she said that, then he doesn't have to show any reputational loss. So it's just an easier way to prove your case is kind of what I'm getting at. But with respect to the professional misconduct, I think his case is a little bit weaker because, like, sure, okay, yeah, I think people are going to be distracted by the serious criminal misconduct aspects, and it's like, dude, you were involved in leading the security team that day that had an obvious failure. You know what I mean? Like the result of that day was not what they wanted. You know what I mean? That morning. So that absolutely, like, I think if you were trying to, well, let me just say it this way. So establishing that, right? Like I would point to the serious criminal misconduct, professional misconduct. It's gonna be tough, but always remember this: there's gonna be a jury, and you're gonna have to sell this to a jury. And so if you're against Brian Harple and you're going again, you're gonna just be like, "Yo, are you really gonna award damages to Brian Harple under this theory? Like, come on!" Like, I would almost make it to be like he's trying to just get money out of this that you know what I mean? Like he shouldn't even be getting, like he failed that day. And now this is just some, cash grab to get
Right.
something. I mean, he's going to try to show that, he's lost certain contracts and potentially opportunities. So like financial loss, future financial loss. But like, Candace Owens could say, dude, it wasn't because of my criminal statements related to you. It was because look at what happened. Look at what, you know
Right.
what I mean? So it's like,
You lost the
it's going to be
client
a little bit of
forever.
causation too.
Right. Because that's what I was thinking when the lawsuit first came out. It didn't make any sense to me. It still kind of doesn't, just because again, Candace Owens isn't the person that said any of these things. Even if someone else, let's just say she brought up somebody's content. I still don't think that's, we live in America, so that's still not me accusing you. I'm just bringing up somebody else's content. And then, lastly, like you just said, I was going to bring up that point, is that, as far as the businesses you lost, clientele, whatever it is, I think what outweighs Candace's podcast is the fact that you actually lost a client. So I don't think you can fully blame that on Candace. But that's one thing that I continue to think on throughout this whole Brian Harbaugh thing, is the fact that she has never really alluded that, or at least said out of her mouth, that Brian Harbaugh did something and conspired to do something to Charlie Kirk. Did he fail Charlie Kirk that day? Absolutely. Everybody has said that on the internet. But also, more people on the
Well, let me
internet
ask you this. I guess from a factual perspective, I would probably be trying to convince you, if you were a juror, like, do you think that there was a conspiracy between Mitchell Snow and Candace Owens? I think that's an open factual question that's not been established, because, that's what's really going to come down to. Can you attribute the statements of Mitchell Snow to Candace Owens? The only way you could do that is you would have to show some type of agreement. And, that's not established at this point.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that and again, I've watched all of the content, and I believe that what's, I would say, saved Candace is the fact that when she first brought Mitch Snow on, she said plenty of times that she, doesn't know this person. She vetted this person 1,000 times. She cannot conclude that whatever he's saying is true or facts. She doesn't know. She even said on many of her podcasts that, can somebody, when she first started reaching out to Brian Harbaugh, and she showed the screenshots of that, of once she brought on Mitch Snow, she reached out to Brian Harbaugh several times and said, hey, I am looking to debunk Mitch. I am looking to prove that he is a liar. I just need you to give me something. I'm not saying I believe him. I'm not saying any of that. And it's true. On her podcast, when Mitch Snow first came out, she never said any of this is facts. But she has said plenty of times, Brian Harbaugh, please give me something so I can help your case. And he never did. He never responded to her. And it went on from there. So that's why I don't really think there's anything there. As far as, the only thing I think that they could bring from it is, or I guess get from it, is that Candace, I think, raised money for Mitch Snow. And, I don't know where that ended. I don't know if Mitch Snow got it. I don't know. But as far as that's kind of the only thing that I guess angle people can bring together, is like, oh, why would Candace raise money for this person? And look how much money they raised. They must have known each other. And they can maybe dig a little deeper into that. But as far as a general perspective, Candace said so many times that I don't know this person. I don't necessarily agree with anything he's saying. I don't know. I'm not him. I'm just allowing him to come on my platform and tell us what he saw that day at Fort Huachuca. So I think it would be hard for Brian Harbaugh to win that part of it.
Okay. Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, obviously I think we've kind of discussed, the conspiracy part, but yeah, if there's no conspiracy and it was just, hey, I brought him up, he said this, I think, you make a point. I would have to do a little bit more research with respect to, could I establish as a matter of law? Okay. Because let's say, for example, I don't know why this would be the case, but the issue of a conspiracy was not a fact, going into the trial. Like, both sides were like, yeah, we were involved in this, well, I guess that wouldn't happen. Maybe we don't have to go down that rabbit hole, but yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it'll be interesting. I'm curious on how that will end. And like I said, I think the biggest thing for me, I was confused on, is the fact that there are people out there on the internet with, large platforms, maybe not as large as Candace, but that have, said by name, Brian Harbaugh did this. He, and
now I will say that one of the only considerations too would be just like, what are the ethical standards, I suppose, of like journalists and things.
Right.
I don't think there's really a formal, I mean, there's probably some formal books you could reach for to set standards, but I'm sure you could find experts to say what's a proper journalist in this context. Did Candace Owens maintain herself with journalistic integrity? I'm sure there's an expert who would testify that she did, right?
Right.
And then with respect to like him not responding to those text messages you mentioned that were like, can you come on and clarify your presence with respect to where you were that day and the timing of this? Um, by virtue of not responding, that can be interpreted negatively. Like if you're silent, that can communicate a statement. Like silence, itself can communicate something. So
Right.
I think, yeah, you can interpret that as you will. Now, if you run it if you run it too far, you know what I mean? I think that can where it can be like, I guess, crossing the line, like how far you should consider that statement. But that just is a matter of how much do you want to weigh the silence of this individual in this context. If you don't give it a lot of weight, you'll probably just disregard it. But if you give it a ton of weight, you're going to be like, dude, your silence is everything. It says everything
Right.
about this situation. I will say this, one of the comparative examples I thought of as you were speaking about that is like, you ever watch like, like the news, just the normal news, and they'll be like, some bad news happened and this person could not be reached for comment. We reached out to the office and they could not be reached for comment. I think that's an appropriate thing for like a lot of media companies to say in that, just so, and I think that's why a lot of these media companies do say it exactly like that, is because they want to communicate to their viewers that, this person, we tried to reach out to him, get some commentary on this for clarification, but he could not be reached for comment. But the news doesn't then get on and just make an hour long channel, I suppose, or 3 hours out of that material. So that could be one little difference, but I mean
Right.
that's slight too, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I mean, I guess we'll see. I'm glad that I got to hear your perspective on it just to make sure I wasn't tripping when I'm just in my own thoughts. I don't come from a legal background, so I can obviously go on emotions and my own understanding, but I was like, maybe there's something out there that I don't know of. But yeah, it just doesn't
I
really
will
make sense.
ask you this too, with respect to the criminal misconduct, it would be, well, I guess you're attributing the statements to Mitchell Snow and not to Candace Owens, even attributing the statements to Mitchell Snow. So I'll give you that. Let's
Okay.
just capture the statements of Mitchell Snow. Did he
Mhm.
communicate like serious criminal misconduct of Brian Harple in
He,
this
he
situation?
Yeah, and he said the day that show aired on that episode, he said that he could not 100% confirm that it was Brian Harbaugh. He just said it looked like him. And he, as the story kept progressing and the Fort Huachuca thing kept taking off, he ended up changing the person like every couple of weeks because he wasn't confident. So he said, "Yeah, it looks like Brian Harbaugh." And then, he went on to Cabot Phillips, and then he went on to another guy and another guy. So he didn't once, because he didn't know any of these people. So he didn't once come out and say, "I know for a fact that's Brian Harbaugh." The only person that I think he said he was confident in was Erica Kirk. He said, I remember her blue eyes. I remember when she was on TV, and that was for sure Erica Kirk. But he wasn't confident in Brian Harbaugh.
Yeah, no, I discussed this with another podcaster, and I think he stated that he was like, quote, like 95 to 99%
Yeah,
sure. And
yeah,
that's a high percentage. And I'll give,
it is.
I'll grant the high percentage. The only thing is, if I'm the opposing attorney, I would say, all right, well, Mr. Harple, what is giving you 1 to 5% doubt? Could you explain the grounds for that 1 to 5% out loud? Can you
Right.
state what they are? And I would just, we just have to hear it, right? And
Yeah.
then I might try to accentuate it more. Oh, you said you couldn't see her face from that angle a little bit, right? Oh, well, that maybe you didn't know who it was. Like that's probably how I would try to spin it if I were against
Right.
him.
Right. Yeah, I can see that. That would make sense. So what's, I guess, going into the main crazy case that's going on? I guess you can provide your, position on what you see in this Tyler Robinson case, from whatever angle you want to, and then I'll probably chime in and comment from there. Don't mind me. I'm lowering my desk, so that's why I'm finna turn around.
Oh, good. Yeah, no, I mean, obviously he's been accused of, assassinating Charlie Kirk on that day. And there's, different video evidence, testimonial evidence, documentary evidence, communications evidence, and things of that nature, and forensics evidence, DNA evidence that would indicate that he's the accused has been properly accused up to this point. But you're innocent until proven guilty. So, that's important to always recognize as well. And then, two, with respect to Tyler Robinson's legal position, I think one very important thing to consider at all times is we do not know the official pleading position of Tyler Robinson. And one of the very important points to illustrate that is this: if you're accused of murder, you go into court and you pretty much have like two defenses. It's either I did it and here's why I did it, or I didn't do it. It wasn't me, it was somebody else. And we do not have his official legal position yet. And, Utah law affords him the right not to reveal that at this time. But I think that, position, once it's revealed, will indicate a lot where this is going to go, because, you hear theories that it wasn't him, but, that's not his stated theory yet, right? He may very well walk into court that day and state, I did it, but the reason I did it was like political insanity or something like that.
Right. Right. And then so, I guess there's so many things with this case that confuses me, especially when it comes to, a death penalty case. And I'm just assuming that, you got to does the jury have to unanimously vote to give him the death penalty, or can it be off? Like, does it have to be a unanimous vote to actually convict him and sentence him to death, or can something be off?
Yeah, no. So a couple things in that. For purposes of a criminal conviction like this, you do need a unanimous jury. So they will need
Okay.
to get a unanimous jury. That was a
Okay.
recent constitutional opinion that decided you needed a unanimous jury for criminal trials like this. Now, with respect to what was your other question in that? What else did you say? The death penalty with the jurors deciding. That's more
Correct.
of a state question. I don't think that's been decided by the Supreme Court. So maybe in Utah they do, permit the jury to decide the death penalty, but in some states I believe that the judge is actually the one who decides that. So the jurors can just find that, this person factually is guilty, and committed the crime, but then the judge is the one who imposes the sentence, whether it's life in prison or, not even life in prison, lesser sentence, right? Or maybe
Mhm.
even the death penalty. So, yeah.
Okay. And so I'm gonna ask you a question, and we'll probably have to work backwards. In your opinion, do you think beyond a reasonable doubt he'll be found guilty?
Oh, I mean, like I said, the evidence has to all come out, right?
Yeah.
And I'll say this as a lawyer, you can never make guarantees to your clients. It's actually an ethical violation to guarantee cases and results to your clients. So if they ever if any lawyer you ever hire is guaranteeing you results, don't hire them because they're violating like ethical rules. So I can't really guarantee you a result in this because, who knows what could happen. I mean, we've seen crazier things happen than just this case, believe it or not. It is crazy, for the last calendar year for this case particularly. But yeah, I mean, I think the evidence right now is very strong. I think the prosecutor, I saw he got in trouble for stating that there's ample evidence, and the judge, paid Tyler Robinson's legal fees, or had imposed that the state do it. So yeah, I think there's enough evidence right now with public reporting that I think that he'll be convicted. But I mean, the thing is if he's affirmatively able to show that he's politically insane, you can't punish, you know what I mean, an insane person like that. So it's like, that could happen, quite frankly. I think a chance of actually proving political insanity is extremely low because, like, quite frankly, I've never really heard of that happening anywhere. And then people are not going to sympathize with you committing acts of murder just because you're, quote, politically insane. You know what I mean? You still got to comply by the rules at some level, even though you might have these insane political sympathies and you hate Charlie Kirk and stuff. So
Right.
I don't think the people of Utah are going to buy into an insanity defense of that nature. And then I just don't think the evidence right now indicates he's going to accuse a third party of having done the crime and it wasn't him. He could
Right.
make that defense, but like that, I mean, it's almost like it's a fork in the road. You're going to go to trial. You can't really have it both ways credibly in front of a jury. You know what I mean? You're either going to stick with that political insanity lane, or you're going to go, it wasn't me. I've been framed and everyone's involved in it.
Right. Yeah, I don't think he'll involve other people either. But I guess my biggest issue is, I know you said
And then
that
too,
the
if I
evidence.
may, like
But
if you go down that second route, it's like, okay, let's just, I mean, open that can of worms and where that could go. It's like, well, the state is going to show some of the like ballistics evidence and stuff, and they're going to give their framing of the story, and the jury's just going to hear all of it. And I'm sure the excuse me, the prosecution's framing of the case and how they're going to present it to the jury. So then it's like up to Tyler Robinson's side to then present like what actually happened, and why this is all not there. And I've heard, I mean, I just did a stream and they were talking about energy blasts and stuff like that. And I think that's where that Egyptian planes thing came from. I finally put two and two together. Is it the energy blast came from Egyptian planes? Is that something like that
uh
maybe?
yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah, well, but basically, it would be expected by Tyler Robinson at that point to show what happened. The state has presented all this evidence that you did it. So, what do you have to say that somebody else did it? And if he just walks in there with like, holding up kind of what's more or less perceived as conspiratorial stuff that's like has no basis in reality, I don't even think the judge would admit certain things. Like if he, but even if the judge was like, look, man, this is crazy, I might have to go ahead, just state it. Like the jury's going to be like, oh my gosh. And guess what? Some of those jurors, quite frankly, can be interviewed potentially after. They can refuse to be interviewed. But if they're interviewed, they may very well state to the public right after. They're going to be like, yeah, the state came in, presented their case on who did it. And, we heard him there. And then he said it wasn't me. Hold on. He said it wasn't me. Wasn't me. I got a little Shaggy going on. If you heard my, so he says it wasn't me, but like, ultimately, then who did it? And if he just isn't credibly able to present somebody, I think that defense is going to fail.
Yeah. I mean, I think so for me, the issue I have is I don't think he'll say a third party was involved, even though, in my opinion, this is the conspiracy side. I do think that there was, a huge effort, but more than just Tyler Robinson. Not that I know some people say that he is completely innocent. It's just 100% frame. I don't think so, but I do think that there are a lot of things that don't add up that day. If they do want to say beyond a reasonable doubt that it was him that pulled the trigger, as in, starting off with the main thing, which is the 30-06, the bullet itself. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense to me. I know that they're going to present the case in different ways to make it make sense for the jury. But even when it came to the autopsy, from what they've shown so far, which is, the bullet was found, in Charlie with about 3 or 4 pieces of fragment. And you just can't find that anywhere on the internet of it happening where a 30-06 goes through the softest part of a human body and you can find the entire bullet and 4 pieces of frags inside. So, a lot of people will say, well, it's a 1 in a million type of shot. And I'm like, well, they're going to have to prove and make this 1 in a million type of shot make sense to the jury because it doesn't really make sense to me. This is the softest part of the human neck. And I just don't see that. That doesn't make any sense at all. Then when it comes to the gun itself, they show the footage of Tyler Robinson being on campus a few times and all of that. But, they don't have clear footage of Tyler Robinson on the roof. They have him in the parking garage. They have him walking upstairs, but they don't have him going on the stairs to the roof because they said that the gun was in his skinny jeans and he pulled it out. He assembled it, ran across the roof, but none of that, like the pulled it out the jeans, assembled, run across, or the run across the roof is on camera, but the pulled out the jeans and assembled is not on camera at the moment. Not that they don't have it. They just haven't released it at the prelim at least. And we saw the footage last week as far as the person Tyler Robinson running across the roof. and getting in his prone position. And again, it was just like a blob image. You can't really see the rifle running across the roof. You can't really see anything. So when it comes to, the 30-06, that doesn't really make any sense to me. Then it comes to, okay, can we pinpoint the rifle on cameras at some point in time that morning on campus? There's no footage of it. There's no footage of the rifle in his hand with Tyler Robinson's face on camera. Because again, we have to assume that they're telling the truth as far as the rifle being in his skinny jeans. I think it's going to be hard to prove that because we have the footage of him arriving on campus for the last time, and he was in a very thin black long sleeve and skinny blue jeans. And it's just hard to believe that a rifle is stuffed somewhere between there, and then magically it appeared on the roof. So it doesn't make any sense to me. And then on top of that, it being in the woods, and I know that they didn't have this in the legal documents so far, but I guess you could say conspiracy for now, which is the bomb dogs and stuff could not find the rifle, and which was recently fired, and that's nearly impossible. And then the last thing that I can end off and let you go from there is the DNA. Lance Twiggs, which is somebody that I feel like they are really banking on in this case to use as kind of like the smoking gun evidence that Tyler Robinson did it because he confessed to his boyfriend. But Lance Twiggs' DNA is on absolutely everything at the crime scene. And somehow this guy has limited immunity. His DNA was on the gun, his DNA was on the screwdriver, the towel. And, this guy has his testimony in court at the prelim, and he says Tyler Robinson never talked about Charlie Kirk. And, another question I'll end up having for you, I know this is extremely loaded, but Turning Point USA, which I thought gag orders were in place, but these people were going out on the internet every day saying Tyler Robinson confessed to his boyfriend. He hated Charlie Kirk. They said all of these things. And Lance Twiggs got up there himself and said he never talked about Charlie Kirk. He wasn't even into politics. But TPUSA and certain media painted Tyler Robinson to be a leftist trans furry, and he did it because he was radicalized by the left, and his boyfriend came out and said he never watched Charlie Kirk, never heard of him, never talked about him, and he wasn't even into politics. That to me is like a narrative shattering detail because that just goes against all the things that everybody has been trying to put out there and get ahead of. And I just think that's a serious issue.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you raise like a lot of really, interesting points that the prosecution is going to have to address. And obviously, first things first, what you mentioned up front, the previous hearing was a preliminary hearing prior to trial. And all it was to see if there was sufficient evidence to bind this case over for trial. So it's not a full evidentiary hearing. It doesn't involve all of the evidence that's been collected so far. So that actually remains to be seen. And I'm sure we as the public don't have all of the, recordings, the video files, the images, whatever you name it. So, you just got to set that first. So, we should expect to see more at trial. I will say that, with respect to some of the DNA evidence, I do know that, there was, allegations with respect to discovering the screwdriver and the towel that had DNA. I've heard some people in my own comments, was the towel on the roof or was it in the woods with the gun and stuff like that? I thought it was on the roof, but it seems like he ran off the roof with this towel. It looked like on the image and stuff. And then too, I guess what you also said, so I just think some of the DNA does indicate, that it could have, it was Tyler Robinson's DNA. And so then you just got to explain, well, how was his DNA there? And then the only way you can explain it there is it was the plant theory. Somebody went up there and planted it, essentially. Now, but then you also run into this. Well, why is Tyler Robinson not defending himself? You know what I mean? In the court of law, like, like he's just clearly, did he even plead the Fifth Amendment? You know what I mean? When he was being interviewed by the police, like I think he has, because clearly we don't even know his own pleading position right now. So he's already taken certain advantageous legal positions by not disclosing to us his theory of the case, really, because he doesn't have to disclose his position. So I think he's benefited actually from some of the criminal rules. And then, what was I gonna say also? I mean, I guess with respect to the screwdriver, there was I saw the video of like the manipulation of the weapon. I agree. I don't know why he would have used the screwdriver exactly, why the gun wasn't already assembled. Also, another thing I wanted to point out is this. I know you mentioned that you cannot see the weapon at any point in the video on any of the video that you see, right? And I think
Right.
you raise a great point. But I think Tyler Robinson, if I were the prosecutor, here's what I would say to you if you're a skeptical juror. I would say that was by design. He did not want anyone to detect him with a weapon walking through campus that day. He had to conceal it because if you're walking through a college campus with a rifle, like you're going to be reported to law enforcement and it would have thwarted his plans. Like that would be my theory on how I would try to rebut that. And then I would just say like, with respect to, the 30-06 bullet and stuff like that, I guess that assumes the fact that Tyler Robinson didn't fire the shot that hit, Charlie Kirk, I guess, or maybe you think it did. I'm not sure, but I think the evidence would show that yeah, the bullet fired, and I agree with you. It's an irregular situation. Look, I mean, I'm not a ballistics expert, and so I can't really comment on much on guns, but it's like it does strike you that it's like, wow, you're telling me this bullet can't fire through, you know what I mean, somebody's neck. It just doesn't strike me as like reality. And I'll give you that, but I'll say this, like when you are a juror sitting in that box, you're going to get experts presenting you with stuff that it's like you don't know really what any of these experts sometimes mean. They're just trying to tell you what this evidence before you means, and they'll explain why the bullet fragments did what it did. And the other side may very well say, if they're saying somebody else did it, they're going to say, well, Tyler Robinson fired the gun, but it wasn't his bullet. It was another bullet or something like that. But then you actually have to coordinate the firing of two shots at the same time, which is a bit of a difficulty and, practically speaking. So yeah. And then, what else was it? No, I guess, do you have anything else on those fronts? Those were just some of the points that I thought of as you were going through. I think there was one more point, but it's slipping my mind.
Yeah, I mean, while you remembering that, the bullet is something that's supposed to be kind of like the damning evidence that just seals the deal, but something that's a once in a lifetime shot. Not that I'm saying
Oh,
that it's
may I
impossible. Go
point
ahead.
this out actually? You did point out that, and it just struck me, why did they ask Lance Twiggs that question? It literally, as I sit here with you, it just struck me. Why did they ask Lance Twiggs at that deposition hearing, about Tyler Robinson's political, rhetoric in the relationship and stuff like that, if
Right,
you even want to
right,
call it that? And apparently Lance Twiggs said he never spoke about politics and stuff like that. I think what that can actually be used for is ammo by the state to say, you really want to go down that political insanity route? Because we're going to show Lance Twiggs and we're going to get Lance Twiggs on the stand and basically say, you never even spoke about politics. Like, you clearly were not insane, because I guess normal insane people in politics can't stop talking about it in their personal lives. And it's like a
right.
lot of people would predict something like that. So maybe it's just a type of evidence that the prosecution could use to say, no, if he says I did it and here's why I'm politically insane, the state's going to be like, look, he did it and he's not insane. He didn't talk about politics. He had all full rational understanding. He understood the nature of his actions and the wrongness of them. I think that's what they're going to try to frame that potential testimony like.
Right. Okay. And then what about staying on Lance Twigs? What about the fact that they asked him in that deposition, when about I think the Dremel, that's what it was. They said, "Did you notice Tyler Robinson, engraving bullets?" And he said, "Yeah, he was in, he asked for the Dremel. He was preparing for a hunting trip with his family. It said it was about a month out or something like that." And the first thing I thought of was obviously they both were blue collar workers, according to Lance Twigs. So I guess it wouldn't be crazy out of the ordinary to have a Dremel, but at the same time, it was Lance Twigs's Dremel because he said Tyler Robinson asked him where the Dremel was, so he
What is a
pointed him
Dremel,
towards
by the way?
the tool that you use to make carvings. So he was using
Okay,
it to
where did he make carvings? Allegedly.
allegedly on the bullets, on the different
Oh,
shells, and he had different sayings on it, apparently, allegedly, or that's what the evidence is showing,
I
that he
will
had
say that a
different.
lot of like shooters have done that. Like, you know what I mean? A lot of them. I mean,
Yeah, I've
it's,
heard that.
like
Yeah.
I said, yeah, I've heard it in other cases. I mean, I don't know if it happened here, but I've heard it in other cases at least.
Yeah, he had, different things on the shelves, according to the evidence. And so my thing is, when Lance Twigs brought that up, I was like, one, Lance Twigs owns the Dremel, or at least uses it more than Tyler Robinson, because Tyler Robinson is asking him where it is, and Lance Twigs pointing him in that direction. Secondly, you were watching Lance Twigs engrave these bullets, because Lance Twigs said in the deposition to be careful so you don't set the bullet off. So you were watching him do that. And then the last thing that was kind of strange is that he said he was doing it preparing for a hunting trip with his family in about a month out. But the UVU event was planned last minute. It was planned in the last like 2 to 3 weeks. That was a last minute planned event. So if you know that Tyler Robinson was doing this a month out, then how could the prosecution or whoever say that he was strategically planning and waiting for Charlie Kirk when the event wasn't even planned yet, when he was engraving these bullets? So how are these, whatever he wrote on there, it couldn't have been for Charlie Kirk unless he was waiting for somebody else popping up in Provo, Utah. But that is strange to me. And then on top of that, Lance Twigg says that he magically, conveniently woke up at 1 p.m. that day. And, Charlie was shot at 12:23, allegedly, or, whatever it was. And so if you woke up at 1 p.m. that day, then he says that Tyler Robinson left a little bit earlier than usual. The only way you would know that is if you was somewhat awake. So you knew when he woke up. I mean, you knew when Tyler Robinson left the house. And on top of that, you magically or conveniently woke up at 1 p.m. So I'm just trying to figure out, how is that not strange for, I guess the prosecution to not want this guy tied in with Tyler Robinson, trying to get both of these guys? Why do you think, in your
Yes.
opinion, does TPUSA, who's, Erica is representing, she's the victim, why is somebody like that not interested in somebody like Lance Twiggs when he seems more involved?
Yeah, and we can continue to go. I'm having fun in this conversation, so we can push on another like 30, 45 minutes if you want.
Okay,
But
whatever
one of
works
the
for you.
things like yeah, one of the things in this I want to also mention that's I think is important is yes, I think this implicates like potentially accessory before the fact and accessory after the fact. And the way you described maybe your potential insight to events is that Lance Twiggs was maybe an accessory before the fact by like assisting in the engraving of bullets, for example. I'm not so sure that like that the evidence would reveal that, but it's a plausible theory to say the least, However, potentially what I think went on is this. This is just my own kind of thinking. There could be a potential accessory after the fact allegations where, I do recall we've seen some come up in evidence like delete these messages.
Yeah.
Typically when people commit crimes or other wrongdoing, they say delete these messages, and that's alleged in this case. And so potentially Lance Twiggs did delete those messages, which prosecutors could say involves obstruction of justice. And, you're really trying to assist the person to get away with the crime. And so you could be considered an accessory after the fact.
The
So we're
burn
going to
note too.
charge you with the crime. What's that?
The burn note as well.
The
Who
Oh
else
yes,
burned the note?
indeed. A
Tyler
burn note,
Robinson didn't burn
exactly.
it.
Yeah, no, exactly. A burn note too. And so with that, like I think the state actually could have prosecuted Lance Twiggs for this as what I would think would be maybe an accessory after the fact. I don't think the evidence would show accessory before the fact, but I think accessory after the fact, I think there was enough there that Lance Twiggs realized, okay, I need to work with the state as a witness in order to actually get this conviction for this person to avoid any, criminal consequences myself. And so just fully compliant.
Gotcha.
And
Yeah.
but they could have done both. Technically, they could have done both. It's just the issue is if you try both, then like, co-defendants, that like one defendant might not work with you so well, which can cause you evidentiary problems in the case. But if you're willing to give like almost, immunity to one of those defendants, and to get their testimony, and again, like it's not like Lance Twiggs is one to alleged to have shot, right? So it's like Tyler Robinson's the ones who are alleged to have shot. And so, like, this accessory before the fact, I mean, there's serious criminal consequences, and you can face similar liability, including the same as if you did the murder. So, like, that's a huge implication. Maybe one could say there should have been more investigation and stuff. I'm sure the authorities would say they did investigate it sufficiently to determine that there was no charges in that aspect. But accessory after the fact, yes. And we'll just offer immunity to get this witness to cooperate. That way we can achieve a conviction, against Robinson. That's what I
Yeah.
think went on.
Okay. And then another question. I told you I got plenty of them, man. I love the fact that you're coming from this perspective. And also all chats, but definitely from the Yap community. If you have any questions for Nick, I can't go through everything. So you will have to put in a super chat if you want to ask Nick any direct questions, so that way I can filter it. And then I see some comments from your side as well. I don't think I've mentioned anything that was a conspiracy. And I know some of your peoples is in the chat saying I'm saying stuff that's just internet conspiracy BS. But I haven't even dove into any of that. I'm speaking straight from the prelim here. I haven't. I could, but I'm not. But
hey, ultimately, I just wanted to come on and just kind of, chat with you about it. I think it's always good just for two people to kind of like, you're going to have your opinions. I'll try to give my perspective. Your viewers will see it, and like everybody will walk away from it. Everybody will have their own thoughts. And like, quite frankly, it's good you give your perspective and stuff too. That way people feel it's sufficiently stated. And I'll just try to give mine, and people can take away from it what they will.
Yeah, absolutely. And our community knows that. I'm not a, echo chamber. I don't just regurgitate whatever these people say online and just use the same talking points. This is straight opinions of my own and own conclusions that I'm attempting to come to. One thing that I do wonder though, I want to ask you is, let's just say you were the defense, you were representing Tyler Robinson. How do you approach some of these things going on? Now we're entering somewhat into the conspiracy land, but these are things that I've seen on the internet that I would argue has a little bit of truth to it. How would you represent, or at least approach situations where 2 weeks ago or so, there was a steakhouse in Utah that an employee has confirmed, right? Eyewitness testimony. He has confirmed that he saw Tyler Robinson the night of in Panguitch, Utah, which is about 3 hours away from the crime scene. He saw Tyler Robinson. This is afterwards as well. He saw Tyler Robinson that night. He served him, and he paid his, like, he got the credit card. That's how he was able to match everything and all that stuff. And that was in Panguitch, Utah. He said, I saw Tyler Robinson. I served him. I got his credit card, debit card. That's how I kind of was able to put the two together. When they put his face on the news, that's how I was able to remember what happened that last night. But the problem with that is that if that is true, then Tyler Robinson, it would be impossible for Tyler Robinson to be camping out at UVU that night, because according to the prelim, according to the evidence, he was hanging around UVU around 11, 12 p.m. going into the midnight hours looking for the gun. That's where you can see the text message saying, I'll be a little while longer, love. I'll be there. I'm retrieving my rifle and all this other stuff. But if this eyewitness testimony is telling the truth, then that could not have been Tyler Robinson even texting Lance Twiggs, yet alone being there, but texting would have been impossible too. So if you were the defense, how would you approach a situation like that where you hear outside noise coming from online and the internet from these independent investigators revealing such damning things that is just that could literally exonerate your client?
And very much indeed. And I think like that evidentiary value, if you could show via testimonial evidence like that, or even video evidence that he was in, 3 hours away from the crime, alleged crime, like that's great evidence. Like I would say, bring it on. Like you got to show that. If I'm the defense attorney, I'm saying like I would have brought that to the probable cause hearing actually, and I would have requested that evidence be, admitted for purposes of the judge determining that this case should not go to trial. How can you send this case to a trial if the guy is clearly, not there at this time? Like, what's the state got to say to this? I have a
Right.
video and I have testimony. You know what I mean? The only issue is the defense didn't do that at the probable cause hearing. And my
Right.
suspicion as to why they did that is because there is no actual witness that can truthfully testify to that, nor is there any video evidence that would confirm his presence away from that. You know, what was that? What else was I going to say with that? Um, that I guess that's going to be the issue. Is just there's not going to be any. Oh, this is what I meant to say with this. I did see this report of the being 2 to 3 hours away from the alleged crime. The source of that report, I think, came from like a Fox report online, and it involved, yeah, a restaurant worker or two stating that they saw Robinson at the, steakhouse. The only thing, and I'll say this, I don't. Are you familiar with the Luigi Mangione case?
Uh, I mean, I know of it. Like it's definitely major, but I don't know every detail though.
Yeah, basically, he allegedly assassinated a healthcare CEO worker, a health insurance CEO worker, and he fled New York City and he was found in Pennsylvania. And the way he was found was actually he was in a McDonald's and a restaurant workers said, that guy looks like he did the crime because on the cameras that were blasted on the news, he had really bushy eyebrows. And they said they thought that looked like him with bushy eyebrows. He had like a face covered in New York, but somehow he got recognized by his eyebrows at the McDonald's. So what I think happened there was a little bit of the hangover effect with Luigi Mangione, and you'll see this at times, like sociologically, where like restaurant workers after a crime suddenly you had this one famous incident where Luigi Mangione was found at a restaurant, and then suddenly you're just in Utah, you know what I mean, and then suddenly you
Mhm.
might be that person who found like Luigi Mangione, but now you find seemingly Tyler Robinson or something like that.
Right.
So
Right.
that's what I'm saying is like that came from a Fox report a while back. I think a lot of content creators have captured that report and just done a bunch of spinning off of it, but that doesn't change the fact that it was really one source that gave all of those content creators really don't have independent evidentiary value because their entire evidentiary value, if they have any, derives from that testimony or report, you know what I mean, from Fox.
Right.
And again, I think the state would have presented the videos or the witnesses at that probable cause hearing to exonerate their client, and the fact they didn't, I think, reveals that they don't exist.
Right. Okay. And then what about um Turning Point USA as a whole? Because some of them were key witnesses of this crime of the century. Um, what about them coming out and placing guilt on Tyler Robinson very very early on, extremely early on, and you have Erica, you have people that were there like Blake Neff. I don't know if you know who that is, but a guy named Blake Neff, he was actually there right next to Charlie, a couple feet away. And really their entire echo chamber. They're coming out saying that he's guilty. The evidence is overwhelming and all this other stuff. Um, Two different questions. How does that not affect the jury, because they have been huge on don't taint the jury, but yet they're coming out saying that he's guilty? Erica made a CBS interview back in December, and she went on public national TV and said she saw it all. The evidence is overwhelming. It's 100% him. They got the guy. And now with this preliminary hearing, I know in your, from your expertise, you say that the evidence is, damning. In my opinion, I don't really
Yeah,
know,
that's what the
but
prosecutor said. He got in trouble actually for saying that. The judge
okay.
made him pay a bunch of sanctions money.
Right. Okay. So yeah. So two questions here. How do you feel about Turning Point USA coming out placing guilt on somebody without all the evidence, especially early on, but still doing it now? It's already been a proven fact that last 2 Fridays ago at the preliminary hearing, um, they invited all of their influencers in the courtroom and came out of the courtroom saying that they saw 4K video of Tyler Robinson on the roof. You can see his face. You saw him take the shot. It was clear as the noonday sun. And then we saw the video last week, and it literally was not that at all. So, how does that not affect the trial? or what's going
Yeah,
on. I know they haven't went into
ultimately,
trial yet, but yeah.
yeah, no, I mean, ultimately, I'll say this, like, people as individuals, we all have our own individual capacities, I suppose, to comment on trials and things. I mean, some of us occupy dual capacities, right? Like the prosecutor can't just be, oh, I'm going to go speak to the media in my individual capacity, and then I'm going to say things about my professional job. It don't work like that. Or about the case you're working on. Like by virtue of having that position and what you do, you're like in your prosecutorial capacity as well. And so here, when we're dealing with Erica Kirk and her statements, she's obviously the TPUSA like leader of the organization at this point. The main one at the top. She's still in that position, even though she occupies a leadership role at this business, can comment on things from an individual capacity. Like, we can all own our own businesses, right? And just, or lead our own businesses and still make comments, whether on our social media to media interviews, if we ever get interviewed, just about our own individual opinions. And obviously, there's been an accused in this case, which involves her husband. I'm sure that she's not, I don't know how much she actually knows. Like, there's really not an educated way I could decide that. I can't get in her mind what she's seen or heard. But I'm sure she's probably reviewed it, thinks there's enough there. And just like she probably is emotional, or, when people push back and stuff like that, which is understandable, but ultimately, look, people, if they want to push back, that's fine. Like, you just gotta, as long as everybody's doing it in good faith, right? Like, as long as you're pushing back in good faith, I mean, that's fine. It is what it is. Cause like, we're all just seeking the truth. It is, if you're pushing back just because it gets you clicks and like, reputational gain, like that's a little bit where it becomes an ethical problem. And I think that's where it's more objectionable as just kind of a practice. But I think if you have good faith objections, I think you should be able to like speak them, freely.
Right.
And I think that it's ultimately going to be the prosecution that's going to have to rebut some of those, theories, I guess, if
Yeah.
they're asserted by the defense.
So, this again is probably from your opinion perspective here, but if Tyler Robinson, let's just let me fall into the original narrative, and they said Tyler Robinson is, he's the lone gunman, he acted alone, all of these things that they've been saying, the original narrative. Then, one thing that would confuse the heck out of me is that if that's the case and the evidence is overwhelming and it's so clear, then why? And I see people in the chat saying I haven't seen the video. The video already came out, bro. So why would they come out and blatantly lie about this video? And then we see it and we just trying to figure out, hold on, why would y'all all come out as an organization, right? And I'm throwing Erica in there because it's her organization. That's just what happens. But all of her employees and affiliates and associates.
Are they saying
Why
they
would
saw
you?
the grainy video, like 4K? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, yes, this is it's at Benny Johnson, Brandon Tatum, Jack Posobiec. Those are three names that you can go Google tonight and go back and look at whatever Friday that was of day 5 of the preliminary hearing. They all came out and said, we saw the video. It was 4K footage on the roof. You saw his face. You can see him take the shots. It was clear as day. People were laughing because Brandon Tatum said it was clear as the noonday sun. Benny Johnson said the same thing. It's so clear, whatever. And then what they didn't know at the time is that the exhibit, I believe it was exhibit 12.4, it was already leaked to the public. Like the public camera accidentally viewed the exhibit on national TV. So we already saw it. And they came out without even knowing we saw it and said all of those things. And then that's when it kind of to get crazy, because that's when a couple of other people that were inside the courtroom that was not with Turning Point USA, they were like, we were in the courtroom. There was nothing about that video that was 4K. It was the same security camera footage from the parking deck or the parking lot where, you could see a grainy image run across the roof, but you couldn't see him take the shot and you didn't see his face. So coming from somebody that am open-minded, why would these people come out and blatantly lie about something if the evidence is overwhelming? Why would you have to do all of that? Why would you lie?
Yeah. The only thing is I would say is this is like, basically you have, the evidence that was shown at the preliminary hearing with respect to like the video, I mean, the video is like, we saw it was grainy. So yes, there's a grainy video that's circulating in the public discourse and that we've all seen. Um, with respect to the testimony of seeing a 4K video, I will say this: technically, just technically under the rules, right? Because if you have to assume this premise is true, we have not seen all the evidence, because this was a
Mhm.
probable cause hearing. So in theory, if we have not seen all the evidence, there is a likelihood, just by logic, right, that there could exist some 4K video. I'm not saying there is a 4K video. Maybe it's not 4K and it really is all made up. You might be completely right on that. But technically, the only thing I just want to point out is like, I get they said 4K right there at the stand, I suppose, on day 5. I'm not exactly sure of that scene you're discussing, but that's what I envision. And then all of a sudden, as they're speaking about 4K, there's like a grainy video right next to them that's supposed to be like correlative, with their testimony. But I would have to see it, kind of in full time just to be sure that is exactly what occurred. But I would just say that maybe there's additional video out there that, they said that, they saw. And truthfully, too, at trial, maybe that video comes out. So don't immediately eliminate that there's no 4K video, but obviously if they said it was 4K and it's not 4K, and Tyler Robinson's position is I didn't do it. I mean, you got to put all that evidence together, right? And try to weigh it out. But then, if Tyler Robinson's position is I didn't do it and that there's a second shooter, okay, well, where did the second shot come from? You want to assert that position, like assert it. And
Yeah,
it's up to him, right? He can't just walk into court and say, it wasn't me. I'm just an angel. It's everybody else. I've been framed. Like, no, you've had months and months to gather evidence to show and prove your case that it was somebody else. It's not like you just walk in there day one, state your position, it wasn't me, and you never had a duty to engage in investigation efforts, to
yeah,
prove your case that it wasn't you. So, and then too,
yeah.
I guess like I could ask you, I could ask you some questions, I suppose, like with respect to, do you think Tyler Robinson? Do you think Tyler Robinson was in that video that we saw recently with the prone position, or do you think that's like
Um,
another person?
I mean, I'll be honest. I do think it was another person, just because of not any type of conspiracy thing, but what I saw on the roof seemed like a heavier individual versus, according to the arrest records, Tyler Robinson was like 5'10", 165, 75 pounds. That person seemed a little bit thicker running across the roof. And so based on that,
Well,
I was
who
like,
was
I
it
don't
then?
even
I suppose.
I'm not sure, and that's why I do agree. When you get into that, I've already told my community I think Tyler Robinson is either not going to make it to trial or he's going to be found guilty, because when you take that approach of all the other things, at the end of the day, like you said, he's not defending himself. I think that I think there is something bigger than this, but Tyler Robinson is where he wants to be. If we're going to also go down that road of something bigger is happening, I think he played a role. So no matter what, he's not gonna reveal everything. That's why I think he's just gonna stay silent. But I do
Well, let
think
me
it was
ask you this
somebody
too.
else.
Like, do you believe that Tyler Robinson is vigorously defending his interest at his criminal case? Do you think he is actually like he's not defending his own interest? And are there
Oh
any other
man,
cases you can point to where that's actually occurred?
it- I can't, and it's confusing. I really have no answers on why he, especially knowing that you're up against the death penalty. You would assume that he would come out and say something, but it's confusing. He hasn't said anything. His parents haven't said anything. And so all of these people that are close to him and there are reporters in the courtroom that have already came out and got testimonies from his side of the family, and they all said the same thing. They all said, we don't think Tyler Robinson did this, but none of them will say anything publicly, nor will Tyler Robinson represent himself publicly as far as defending himself. So I'm not sure his angle. It doesn't make any sense, and I do think he's going to end up going down for this. But no, it genuinely doesn't make any sense. Without all conspiracies, when I
Well, let
saw
me
that
ask
guy
you. I
on the
mean,
roof,
that because the thing is like So if there's no reason for him to not be vigorously defending his own liberty interest, because what they're going to do is lock you up or like give you the death penalty, which deprives you of life and liberty, which is like your own constitutional interest. So essentially, he's waiving his constitutional interest to be like sacrificed for some reason. Is kind of the way people are framing it. So it's like, I just ask you, why is he doing that? And then I could not only why is he doing it, because I know I'm going to get the answer. Well, I don't know, because then it leaves like, well, maybe he's a part of something bigger in this sense. And like, I get that, but then I'll just bring it back to this. What's more plausible then? Don't think about why is it. Okay, well, fine. We don't have to get down to why, but what is more plausible? That the grain, because you just said that the footage isn't clear, but now it's clear enough for you to know he's big, right? So which is it? Is it clear enough for you to know how big a guy is, or is it not clear enough? You know what I'm saying?
Right,
I can kind of pick and choose. You're kind of getting both sides of me here. So it's like I could go down that route too. And it's like, with Robinson, I just think you have to like, I could just say assume, because we're just outside observers and we're just kind of seeing it. But it's like no person I don't think we've ever seen has it vigorously defended their own constitutional interests. Like even like I know there was that recent Kobe Bryant. Was that his name? Or no, what was the guy's name? Carmelo Anthony. I'm thinking of I knew he had a basketball name. Carmelo, even he's vigorously defended his own constitutional interests. You know what I'm saying? Like, it was like, why don't we just say, well, he was, I don't know. It just gets a little weird when you start saying like people are just waiving and they're willingly going to be sacrificed at their life to the state or go to jail forever.
I mean,
people can say, oh, well, he's doing it to save his family and his future. It's like, I mean, then I guess it's like, well, he lived a bit of an irregular life, out of Utah. It's kind of a conservative state. He's got like a boyfriend, Lance Swick, but it's a trans, girlfriend. So it's like kind of a weird situation, boyfriend, girlfriend, but it's just irregular, right?
Right. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. It's weird because, Lance, again, everything's based on Lance's testimony. Like the only way we can kind of prove that they were together is through Lance. As far as like actually being in an intimate relationship, is through Lance. Lance is supposed to be this trans furry, but he came out, no offense to anybody, but he looks very normal to me. So it's like, this whole narrative that we were fed, if I really want to open that mind, and I'm open to it, of somebody being like, look, bro, here are all the facts and evidence of Tyler Robinson. And this is why I'm just huge on like it making sense to me. If it doesn't make sense to me, I'm not going to just fall victim to it. So, when I look at the entire case, go ahead.
And I guess like to finish, like, and I meant to finish that. It's like, what's more plausible? He's waiving his constitutional interest to life and liberty, or he is vigorously defending them. And, it's just so far, this is what we've seen play out before us.
Yeah, it's it's all tricky. I think personally, if he were to somehow get exonerated, and again, I don't think he's, in my opinion, I don't think he's just 100% innocent. He's a patsy. He did absolutely nothing wrong. They got the wrong guy. I don't think any of that. I think he did play a role. However, I do think that if he were to be exonerated and let's just say set free, that wouldn't work if we're talking about something from a bigger perspective, a larger conspiracy. He would be in grave danger if he were to be set free. But I also think he's in grave danger, personally, in my opinion. I think he's in grave danger regardless, because if he were to be exonerated, I don't think he'd be out for that long or living for that long. But while he's in jail right now, as we get closer to trial, meaning all the evidence has to be released. And I think personally, man, with the things that the inconsistencies in this case, for them to have to
but who do you know that like doesn't defend themselves in criminal court? Like, I mean, I'm challenged. Who have you ever known in your life and ever seen that's done this? And so you're gonna like, what is more plausible? There's one person, you know what I mean? Like, think about it. All the math, like, I mean, statistics and math. It's like, when has this ever happened? And so it's what's more plausible, that he's doing this, that you can't literally name another instance, or he is still vigorously defending it. And remember, I guess another point to make is this: we simply don't know all the evidence. Like, we had only a probable cause hearing. So the state seemingly says that it has more ammo, but the defense had the right to present evidence that would have exonerated him and shown that there's not probable cause, to send this to trial. And again, the
But
probable cause standard.
do you feel like
Oh, go ahead.
from a preliminary hearing perspective, though, you know how usually you're just trying to find probable cause. So let's just say, from your perspective, from a judge's perspective, I feel like the reason that they didn't defend absolutely everything, or maybe had, damning evidence that exonerated him, I feel like the footage, the security camera footage of him in the parking garage, and maybe one or others that I'm trying to think of, I do feel like that's his face. So I feel like, why are you in Utah? Why are you in Provo at this time when you live 3 hours away? Like, I feel like some of those little things was enough probable cause. So that's why, like, I'm not a lawyer, but that's why you're here. I feel like from a defense's perspective, I'm like, listen, bro, we're gonna go to trial, because we can't dismiss the fact that you're in the parking garage on camera, and your car is in the parking garage on camera. You live 3 hours away. You have no reason to be here. So off of that, I think that's enough probable cause to go to trial. So we're not going to present everything at this exact moment that defends you and maybe exonerates you, because we're not going to be able to fight the fact that your face is in the parking garage. So do you think that maybe that's why they didn't, bring everything to defend him at that one moment? Maybe they're waiting because they're like, we can't prove that, but we're going to prove that you at least didn't take the shot.
Yeah, I mean, the state, they're going to do anything they can at that probable cause hearing to show sufficient probable cause. Like, and that's going to include, video evidence, DNA evidence, testimonial evidence, if they have it. So they had like twigs and stuff like that. And the defense has every right to present its own. Uh, what was your question again, I suppose?
Yeah, well, in the preliminary hearing, do you think the defense, like, as far as the probable cause part, do you think the defense maybe did not bring all the evidence that exonerates Tyler Robinson or defends him, because his face being in the parking garage and his car being in the parking garage 3 hours away from home was enough to take it to trial? Or do you think, regardless, they should have just brought everything in that very moment to outweigh some of the other things that could lead to probable cause to take this to trial?
You would bring everything from the defense's perspective. So, like, again, if I were Tyler Robinson's attorney, I would tell him, and you have like a duty as a lawyer too to advocate for your clients, like, as well. Just to say that too. So it'd be a lot of issues with that. But yeah, I would present evidence that he was not at UVU that day if I had it. Like, if I could show, you can't be at two places at once. It's just
Right,
not
right.
physically possible. So it's like, if I could show he was not at the crime scene at the time of the crime, like, to me, that just logically makes sense as to why he's exonerated and should get off. So yeah, if they're able to show that, I think the defense absolutely should bring that up.
So what if they could not prove? Because I know, like, Candace and other people have said before, he wasn't even there. I'd never agree with that, because, like I said, on the security camera footage in the parking garage, that seems like him. But what if they could not prove that he wasn't there? So let's just say, look, bro, you were there, you were definitely there, but we have X, Y, and Z to prove that you didn't take the shot. Would that still be something you bring to the preliminary hearing, or would you wait to trial?
Who is advancing that he didn't take the shot? Like, I suppose he's advancing that theory, the
Yeah,
defense.
because I'm basing this off of, like, the main thing, which is the 30-06, the gun. That's kind of like the main principles of this case is 30-06 gun, Tyler Robinson. So if none of that makes sense, but, like, hey man, they do have you on camera everywhere else. So we're gonna would they bring that evidence to defend Tyler Robinson at the preliminary hearing, saying he didn't take the shot? Like, that to me seems like something that's going on in trial versus
Yeah, if the
preliminary hearing.
defense was advancing that, yeah, like if there was another, Well, I guess it's like this. Are you saying there was a second shooter or there was a sole shooter and it wasn't him? Like he was just a random guy and it's a
That's
sole
the
shooter
trick.
situation, or he had a gun and fired, but there was a second shooter. So I guess that's one issue I'd have to resolve
Yeah,
as
that's
well,
the tricky
whatever you
part.
think that would be.
That's the tricky part. In my opinion, I would be leaning towards this. There's another shooter there, or something
Okay.
else happened to Charlie, but it wasn't the 30-06 coming from Tyler Robinson's gun with Tyler Robinson pulling the trigger.
And two, one of the things though is like, and if I were the prosecutor side, like I'm gonna gather evidence and like, I mean, because thing is like if I can show that he was working with other people, I mean, you've seen like, you know, terrible instances where people work together and they, you know, mass you know, shooter events and stuff like that. 2 or 3 people working together can cause a lot
Right.
of damage. And I'm gonna investigate those types of things. So if I could find evidence that there was a criminal conspiracy going on, you know, like that would, I'd have to obviously go after that second
Okay.
person. So it's like,
Last.
who is he
Go ahead. Go
working
ahead.
with, you know?
Last question for you. Then I
And,
know it's an hour 30 minutes, so I don't want to take you too long. Joe Kent, right? This is on record, not a conspiracy. Joe Kent directly working with the counterterrorism department. He came out, you know, he well, first off, you familiar with Joe Kent, right?
indeed. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Exactly.
Okay. So Joe Kent comes out and he says directly that the FBI blocked him from further investigating the Charlie Kirk murder. And he said himself, he said, I cannot definitively prove that there was foreign involvement. However, there were a lot of leads that we had to run down that appeared to seem that way, but we weren't allowed to run down that lead and we were blocked from the FBI. So, from a defense perspective, if you were defending Tyler Robinson, or maybe even your perspective in general, I would love to hear both. If they're the same, that's great too. How is that not like damning to the case where you have somebody like Joe Kent coming out saying, yeah, bro, there were a lot of things going on with Tyler Robinson. I mean, with the Charlie Kirk case, and the original narrative doesn't make sense. And I had a lot of leads to go down to investigate, and I was blocked by the FBI. And here I am now. I quit. So, what's
Yes.
your take on that?
hmm My take on that would be this, that Joe Kent had a specific role as the head of that department he worked. And in that role, his role was not investigations. The FBI's actual name is the Federal Bureau of Investigations. And so they're actually responsible for investigating different, you know, crimes and things of that nature on behalf of the federal authorities. That would actually not be, and it would, if somebody else tried, either something another agency tried to do it, depending on the context, it would be improper. With respect, you know, I forget the exact agency. I could pull it up on my screen that Joe Kent worked for. But Joe Kent, you know, he worked for a foreign like intelligence agency with the federal
Yeah.
government of some sort, not the CIA. So I don't want to, I mean, it wasn't the CIA, but it was some type of, you know what? Hold on. Give me 2 seconds. I'm just
You
going to
good.
look it up real fast. I got to get this.
Because like and I agree, you know, people have said, you know, Joe Kent is not an investigator, it's not what he do, and I agree on that as well. But the biggest issue is that he says that he was, you know, the counterterrorism department.
Yes. Counterterrorism, National
Yeah.
Counterterrorism Center.
Yes.
Yes.
And
And
so
so with,
yeah.
so I've looked up his role, and essentially, like that role is the national counterterrorism. The FBI is actually they look into, you know, things that involve like terrorism as well, whether it's domestic or foreign. Like the FBI is also involved in different investigations like that. I guess they work with the CIA to an extent, and they also work with, I'm sure, the National Counterterrorism Intelligence, you know, agency whenever they discover something. But again, when it comes to conducting investigations, like, you know, Joe Kent has no authority to like go and tell the FBI how to run things. And just to illustrate this, I don't know if you've ever watched like NCIS and things of like that show, some of these
Yeah.
criminal shows. You ever notice the classic example where there's like the state sheriff is doing an investigation and then suddenly the feds show up and they're like, we're taking over this. And then
Yeah.
the states go, oh, why are you coming in here and blah, blah. That's really what goes on in this situation is like Joe Kent got boxed out like that. And Joe Kent has very, very much like, you know, certain kind of I'm just gonna say I think it can be a bit extreme sometimes. Some of the things he'll like advance, but it is what it is. But again, his role was not for the Federal Bureau of Investigations was the one responsible for carrying out all of those investigative functions, including foreign terrorism and things of that nature. And to the extent they did, you know what I mean. Was there any evidence that popped up that would indicate this? Because if it did, I'm sure they would have happily,
And
went
so
down that
while you're
route.
there, the reason it all kind of popped off is because Andrew Kovac has already Turning Point USA guy. He's already came out and admitted that he screenshotted a message and sent it over to Joe Kent because he felt like Charlie's life was in danger. This is why Charlie was alive. And the reason Joe Kent was doing whatever with that message, because there's a whole little thing about that. But Joe Kent was talking about like the foreign involvement aspect because he said like that was part of his role if something happens and they suspect foreign
Yeah.
involvement and then whatever. So Andrew Kovac sent Joe Kent, a screenshot basically saying, look out for this, or he's suspecting that Charlie could be in trouble. And so let's just eliminate Joe Kent out of it. You just explained that, and I appreciate you. How is that not strange either? Because the FBI, from what I understand, unless trial comes and they bring up more evidence, which they will, but I assume that this Andrew Kovac thing is going to be laid to rest or, buried somewhere else. Everybody's going to forget about it. But how is that not strange for Andrew Kovac to
But
admit?
if I may, though, one thing I have to point out, Jay, is this: is like all of the things you're positing, though, are a bit as what I would describe as an argument from ignorance. So sometimes you'll frame it as we don't have facts in this. Joe Kent didn't get the opportunity. That means no facts. So where no facts, no facts means that there could be these other grander, conspiracies that have not been properly uncovered. And, I'll just say this again. I'm just going to assert the position that the FBI engaged in the proper investigation and found enough evidence to determine to, turn it over to state authorities to prosecute in the state of Utah in a criminal trial, just normal stuff. And then two, with respect to the evidence of like foreign involvement, I just think that, that's fine, but it's like you can't really in doing that, you can't really ignore the evidence we currently have, which is like, the video evidence, like you mentioned, that too, some of the testimonial stuff. Like we got not only Lance Twiggs and communications messages in that sense, he was even a part of a Discord where, and I don't know if you have Discord. I've been a part of Discord, but it's pretty much like a community where you come together and like, it's like for a lot of gamers and stuff. But yeah, he stated this on his Discord stuff as well. So we got some different communications aspect. But yeah, no,
Okay.
I'm just kind of going out on a tangent now. I was losing my train
Nah,
of
you
thought a little
good.
bit.
And then I guess at least last question before you go. Um, Andrew Kovac also tweet is still up saying that he directly talked to the surgeon and he said a lot of different claims that a surgeon wouldn't say, or tell him at least. And so for somebody to come out like Andrew Kovac, that's not really wasn't there that day, disconnected from it all, and he was like, "Oh man, the surgeon said that the bullet was found just beneath the skin, and all of these different things going on." And I forgot what the situation was, but basically the surgeon never said that. So from it when it comes to like again the original narrative, which is Tyler Robinson is the lone gunman, this is what makes my brain go crazy because if he truly was the lone gunman, then why are so many different outside factors, not making any sense? Why is everybody lying? Why is all these things contradicting each other? Why is Charlie sending a text out saying, "Hey, I feel like I'm gonna die tomorrow. Why do I feel like they're gonna kill me?" And then he dies, but now all of a sudden I'm expected to believe that this guy that was engraving bullets a month out preparing for a family trip somehow knew in advance that Charlie Kirk was gonna do a last minute UVU event when he was already engraving bullets. Like all of these different things going on, and everybody's still like Tyler Robinson is the guy, the lone gunman. It makes the most sense. And I'm like, but it just doesn't. What story do you know of a guy saying, I feel like they're gonna kill me, and then he dies the next day? And then all of a
It
sudden
sounds like
we're
you
supposed to
give a lot
believe.
of weight to certain pieces of evidence, like the 4K comment. And my
Yeah.
job, if I was trying to convince you, would just to be like, I mean, right now, like I said, two things. I would say to minimize that, I would say, look, we don't have all the evidence. Maybe there is a 4K video and we just haven't seen it. We've only seen in the public discourse so far this grainy footage. So clearly, in that sense, there is no 4K video circulating, I suppose, right now. So I can see that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, it's just it's crazy, man. And that's why I said I'm definitely open, and I love hearing your perspective on everything. It's just it's gonna be hard for me, man. I've been following it for a while. I'm gonna be looking forward to September to see what the judge rules. It'll probably end up going to trial. But it's just gonna be very interesting because like your chat is funny. I'm looking at it. Your chat is very
I'm not
funny.
even
Yeah,
saying that.
the surgeon, Andrew Covet did say the surgeon said that. He said the surgeon
Oh
said that
yes,
Charlie had a
surgeon. You
strong
said
neck.
surgeon. Well, let me
Yeah,
ask
that's
you this: Did who did what's surgeon for who?
Andrew Covet. The tweet is still up. Andrew
Well, no, I
Covet.
mean, like who did the surgeon perform surgery? Was going to perform surgery on Charlie Kirk?
Yes. That's what Andrew Covet said.
Was
One,
he not dead by the time he reached the hospital?
look. Yes, yes. So the surgeon or Andrew
I
Covet
mean, you
said
could
that.
try to like get it out, right? But it's like there's no chance of really saving him based on the injuries described in the autopsy report.
Right, and it's multiple people too. Like this, the surgeon is different than the medical examiner. That's different than the pathologist. But Andrew Covet said in his tweet shortly after Charlie died, it might have been the next day or the next day, the 11th or the 12th. Andrew Covet said, "I spoke to the surgeon. The surgeon said that the bullet was found just beneath the skin." That's what made everybody go crazy because there's no way a 30-06 went into the softest part of to say the surgeon said that Charlie had a strong neck and he ate good and it was a miracle. And everybody was like, the surgeon would never tell you that. And then that's when conspiracies and people are going to say crazy stuff. But ended up coming out that the surgeon never said that. And it was actually just a whole made up thing. So now I'm like, why would you make that up? You had everybody and this whole, thing. But that was a huge part. Like that is something that, I don't know about the defense and the legal side of it, but there's no way somebody's going to come out and say that the surgeon said all of these things, but the surgeon never said all of those things. Again, why are you lying? That's kind of like the moral of the story, especially with my community, is that look, I'm open to Tyler Robinson being the guy, but you're still gonna have to explain that if he truly was the guy that woke up and chose to drove 3 hours and commit the crime of the century, you're gonna have to explain to me why Erica is lying, why is Turning Point USA lying, why is Andrew Covet putting out tweets that are lying, why is everybody lying? If this guy is just protecting his gay boyfriend and he wanted to go do his by himself, why is everybody lying? Everybody should be able to say,
But the lies that you're like attributing all this weight to, does it really like add up in the face of all the other evidence? Like, are you really going to make the case that all these lies outweigh the DNA evidence, the video evidence? Because there's going to probably be other videos and images. So it's like I'll give it to you. Let's say all of them, exaggerated and things of that nature, and it slipped into like falsity in that sense. But it's like, even if that's the case, right? Like no witness sometimes in law, right? Like your witness has said something a year ago that's different a year later, you know what I mean? And that could be pointed out as like a previous inconsistent statement and things of that nature, prior inconsistent statement. So I think, yes, even though that those statements could very well be exaggerated, I think my only job, if I were trying to convince you, is just to minimize the weight on those and to focus on the other evidence that we have at play, which would involve, like I said, the documentary evidence, like the communications and stuff, the video evidence, some of the testimonial evidence that we have. And
okay,
like
so
I said, I think
that's one
DNA
of them
evidence
then.
is generally strong. You find people like 25, 30 years later, after 40 years later, with these DNA or genealogy test labs and stuff like that now. So, I mean, I think when you add up all of that, I think that's why the state has like a good case so far. But with respect to some of those off comments and stuff like the 4K. Like I said, we don't even have all the evidence. So I think that's a fair response to that. And then with respect to like Erica Kirk or Colvette and talking about the strong neck, it's like, yeah, I mean, it's odd. I'll give you that, sure. But it's like, does Andrew Colvette saying something that the surgeon said mean anything? Does it have any relevance with respect of Tyler Robinson's alleged actions? Like, I'm not sure it does, you know. And then the
Yeah,
surgeon denies it too. He even said it, so it's like it looks like Andrew Colvette is just looking like he's maybe speaking about something to get attention for himself. Maybe I don't know Andrew Colvette or really what he does, but like I mean, obviously you're going to draw attention to yourself if you say that. And the surgeon ultimately denied saying that. So why is he
yeah.
lying? Maybe it's for his own attention seeking.
Yeah, I mean, and that's and again, that's why I said like in the court of law, you're 100% right. None of those things are gonna hold up. You know, that points to like a larger conspiracy where you're
Well,
gonna
no,
have
it's
to
a
prove.
juror thing. You're a juror, so
Well,
like
yeah,
I mean,
right.
if you present that evidence, like, and because if you're the defense attorney, you're arguing, it's like, why are all these people lying? Why are they lying? All I got to do is look at jury in the face and say, even if these people exaggerated, are you going to look at and ignore all this mountain of evidence? You guys are focused over here on this little molehill, and I got a mountain over here that you want to ignore to focus on a molehill. Like that's how I would frame it. But like, you know, some people might say it's not a molehill, and that's going to be the defense's job. They're going to say this isn't a molehill, this is a mountain, and you shouldn't ignore this mountain in the face of, you know, they'll maybe say I have a molehill.
Yeah. Okay. And then so closing out, I want to hear your in whether it's based on the evidence that you know or maybe whatever, but I want to hear your mountain of evidence that you would present to the jury, you know, nothing formal at all, just kind of like a bullet list of like, I think these things right here are pretty damning and it's going to convict Mr. Robinson over there.
Yeah, so all admission of evidence is governed by evidence code. So you have to go to the Utah like evidence code to find admissible pieces of evidence. But I'm sure if we looked at that, types of admissible evidence would include documentary evidence such as communications, emails and stuff, Discord messages. So we can get text messages, notes. We can emit images and stuff like that. All of this is hearsay, but it's going to meet exceptions to hearsay exemptions for different reasons. In addition, you know, we can present expert testimony with respect to ballistics if the issue of injury comes up. You know, sometimes trials can go a multitude of ways depending on which issues really become relevant. Because sometimes the defense might not even contest. Like the defense might walk into court and say, "Yeah, we're not contesting presence of where he was. We say he was on the roof. We say he fired that weapon. We're not disputing the injuries here. All we're going after is like the political insanity thing, like I mentioned." So a lot of the framings can affect it. But yeah, I'm just going to be focused on like all the ways. I'm going to look at the evidence code. I'm going to look at what I can get admitted via the evidence code, and what that's going to involve is all like we've already discussed: video, images, communications, documents, DNA evidence. And with the testimony, there's obviously a bunch of different important testimonial witnesses, and I'll do things such as like call the grandfather and I'll say, "Hey, this allegedly was your weapon, right? And this is the weapon we recovered. Can you please identify this and tell the jury, does this look like your weapon?" He'd say, "Well, yeah, it looks like my weapon." "Okay, well, how do we know that? Is this just not like a normal? How do you know this to be the weapon?" "Well, in this little part here, it has this," or something like that. Turn it over, and maybe there's like the year on it or something. I don't know everything about the guns like that, or maybe like a license. Maybe there's a little marker and engraving or something. I don't know. But those are like some authentication ways. I think you're going to bring on Twigs, right? Twigs, you can't just admit that video, right? That video was just a video there. Like you're going to actually have to bring Twigs to trial. So that video was
Yes.
previously relevant, but Twigs is going to have to come in trial, and he's going to be cross-examined by the defense attorney for
Yes.
like all the things that he's asserting and things of that nature.
Yeah. Yeah. He
Um,
is. He is. It's gonna be
So
very,
yeah,
very,
that's the
very
evidence I
interesting.
would assert. You know, that was all the things I just described, and you know, I think you kind of know, or what we don't know actually, where the defense is going to go. But like I said, I think the defense is going to probably try to seek a plea deal, or they're going to try to go the political insanity route. I don't see them actually blaming a third party, and also too, my position assumes that Tyler Robinson is defending vigorously his own constitutional interest, and his lawyers doing the same on his behalf. And her
Yeah.
record would indicate that if you look up her record too. She's a very
Yeah.
accomplished defense attorney.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I definitely, again, I always see both sides, and I see, the legal and law side that you're talking about in the courtroom and how they're going to approach it. I agree. I don't think that they will, you know, s- blame a third party or, introduce that, because then it's going to be a lot of, that's when the conspiracy thing comes in, and everybody's going to, you got to prove so many different things, and it's chaotic. I must admit, when you really hear absolutely every conspiracy and things that somewhat make sense, but you're going to have to really prove, in the court of law,
To
it's
a
going to be
jury,
challenging.
yeah, it's to a
Yeah.
jury. That jury, I mean, you got to get the jury to believe it. Ultimately, like, what do they
Right.
get? What's the jury more likely to buy, that you're politically insane or that it was another person? And you got to be making these calculuses too.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. So I think it's gonna be hard, and I think the outcome that you just mentioned. I agree. I've said that a million times in our community, that he'll take a plea, or he won't make it in kind of a crazy way that you could probably imagine, or he does get convicted in the worst way possible, which is the death penalty. I know that's what they're pursuing, but I do think it's strange for a guy that's a lone gunman to have this much attention from the I guess the prosecution side and who they're representing, as in Erica and TPUSA, for them to come out and place blame on somebody. The president of the United States placed blame on Tyler Robinson. JD Vance placed blame on Tyler Robinson. That's just kind of weird to me, considering people are always like, don't taint the jury, and you got the president saying, nah, he did it, he definitely did it, and he all this other stuff, and then set the
Was that like
turn
a
upon
Truth
you.
Social post or something?
No, he said this like in it's on video, so like publicly he said
Oh,
these
on a
things. JD
video.
Vance said it on stage with Andrew Kovac at a Turning Point USA event. So JD Vance has said it, Trump has said it, and Turning Point USA, all of them has said that he deserves the death penalty. They hope he gets it in the worst way, like things like that. And then you may have to. I'll have to do my own research, but you may know on the spot. But apparently, I heard that there was a gag order. I feel like I've seen it. I can't really recall it right now. But for a gag order to be in place, and these people are out, placing guilt on Tyler Robinson and saying
The
that he deserves
prosecution.
death.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just feel
Yes.
like
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. That's
all of
unfair.
that.
You shouldn't do that. Yeah.
Right. So, that's strange that they are able to do that and no consequences has happened at up to this point.
Well, no,
So,
time out, time out. You say there's no consequences. I just want to point out that gag order you're talking about was a publicity order, and it governs the like attorney's conduct with respect to like public communications, which would involve like even the way I speak to you right now publicly.
okay.
And what had occurred was apparently the prosecution said that he was pushing back on particularly misleading ballistics report, is how he described it. But what he did is he went beyond just pushing back on that particular misleading ballistics report. Because sometimes, as you know, there's ethical rules to this. You're allowed to push back on particular things, but the judge actually held a sanctions hearing. And because what he ultimately said was he told that media company that there's, quote, ample evidence to convict the defendant. And that violated the publicity order. And it also exceeded what, that little misleading ballistics thing, so he went
Right.
beyond that. And yeah, ultimately, like the judge held him accountable. The prosecutor, I did my recent video on this, and pretty much like what that involves is a sanctions hearing. And like, I've seen them right in front of me happen in court with attorneys all the time. And it's pretty much you're just accused of violating some type of order, misconduct. And then the judge demands you respond to it. And then if you don't have a sufficient response, they can impose sanctions against you, which usually includes fines. At this sanctions hearing, the judge kept on the death penalty and allowed the trial to go forward, but that was on the table. The judge could have said, oh, you violated his rights so much, I'm not even letting this go to trial. It'd be unfair, blah, 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 or a death penalty is now off the table since you did that. But, ultimately the judge didn't decide to do that. The judge just imposed sanctions against him. And then also for Tyler Robinson's appearance there and his lawyer's appearance, the judge made the state pay those attorneys' fees. So, and I'm sure it probably was like 2 to 3 hours. And when you calculate like $400, $600 an hour at 2 or 3 hours, the state probably had to pay like probably $2,000 or so, $3,000 for that appearance and stuff by defense counsel.
Right.
Not Tyler Robinson's going to pay it.
Right. Okay. Man, I appreciate you so much for hopping on and having this conversation. It was long overdue and it was so worth it. I hope that we can definitely do this again in the future, because obviously this is going to be going on for quite some time. So man, I appreciate you
Indeed.
so much. And please drop your socials and anything you want to. Where can the people find you?
Oh, please follow me on YouTube. Just look up Nicholas J. Brooks. I'm trying to reach 10,000 subscribers in the next 2 weeks on my birthday this month, the 17th. So
Oh,
hopefully I
happy
can meet that
birthday.
goal. But no, I would love to come back on. I really enjoyed the conversation. I'm glad, you reached out and we were finally able to get connected. I really enjoy a lot of these, like, one-on-one or three-way conversations and stuff. I
Yeah.
think, they can be really good for like views and stuff too. I think the audience appreciates it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the biggest thing is definitely approaching it, with good faith as well. Cause that's why when I was listening to all of your content, I was like, oh, this would be, I'm thinking it would be a great conversation, which it ended up being. Cause there are a lot of people that from both sides that will enter the conversation, disingenuous and just straight regurgitating things that we've heard on the internet and echo
I can't wait to
chambering.
read the comments in this one.
Yeah, I've been
You know,
reading as we've been talking. Your comment section is hilarious, I must say. I love y'all. I love y'all. I really do. But now it's all love, bro. Hopefully, you felt respected and all, and we'll
for
definitely
sure, absolutely. I
chop it
really
up again.
enjoyed this conversation. Thank you for inviting me. I would love to do it again.
Oh yeah, no problem, but we'll connect. We'll connect again very soon.
All right. Well, wonderful. Well, wonderful to meet you. And hey, shout out to your audience.
Yeah, I appreciate you, bro. Well, I'm gonna stay on for a little bit. Feel free to have a great rest of your night, whatever you want to do. I'm gonna hang out for a little bit longer. Oh man, that was a great convo. I enjoyed it. What do y'all think? I think it was a very respectful convo. I think we both, you know, the best thing about that convo, in my opinion, was hearing his perspective and then also hearing, the legal side of it, where, that throws out kind of like perspectives. That's the law. So both sides, I appreciate it. I appreciate hearing both sides. His comment section is hilarious, boy. They was trying to eat me up. I don't know why y'all like that. I feel like I entered the conversation in good faith. I don't think until the end when we started to like go into some other stuff that was, just chopping it up. But literally for the first hour and 30 minutes, there were no conspiracies. Everything I said was facts. And folks still was talking about he just listened to Candace too much. I didn't even mention Candace for an entire hour and 30 minutes. Bro, it's so funny when people do that. It's hilarious because I literally just put out straight facts, and folks was like, "That never happened." I'm not. This is not up for debate. The reason I'm bringing it up is because it happened. It's crazy, bro. Um, but yeah, I reached out. I reached out to Nick a couple of weeks ago because I was watching him cover Candace content, and I noticed that his comment section and was very anti Candace, and he was just again very unbiased, just giving his legal perspective, and then every now and then he would drop his real perspective, and I appreciate it. I like talking to people from all sides of the aisle. So I was like, man, this would be great. I would love to hear his side because I heard him say that this case was he thinks Tyler Robinson is going down, all the other stuff. He thought the evidence was pretty strong. I was like, I don't agree, but I'm willing to hear it because I'm not a lawyer. Jay, why do you think Tyler Robinson turned himself in without a suspect being identified? I mean, that's the thing, y'all. Anything I say, you're gonna just say it's a conspiracy. But he turned himself in because he felt like he might have been unalived. You know, you just did that. You're armed and dangerous. When the police find you, it ain't gonna be a conversation. Did we not just see the mass shooting in Idaho yesterday? Or maybe the day before, but yesterday? These people don't ever end that situation alive. So, you know, if I'm Tyler Robinson and I played a role in that day, but I want to remain alive, I'm gonna turn myself in. We are better peeps over here. That was awesome to hear. Love hearing their perspective. I'm gonna start just clicking on some random comments. That was awesome to hear. Love hearing hearing their perspective, but I still feel it's more heavy on the innocent of being the shooter, but not innocent or being on site. Yeah, I agree with that. I don't think he pulled the trigger. Nah, it was not facts. The root of what you say came from Candace. I am a grown, forgive me, all my people in the chat, especially the app community. I'm a grown ass man, bro. Grown ass man. Please. I don't need Candace to form a thought. I can look at this whole thing and come up with my own thoughts and opinions and say, nah, bro, something ain't right. How I did that? I did it for an hour and 30 minutes without bringing up a single conspiracy. I brought up straight evidence in the courtroom. And the first thing y'all think of is Candace Owens. I repeated what she said continuously. Well, is she talking about things that happened in preliminary hearing? I can't control if I say something and she says something. Y'all think Candace is the original thinker of the world? Nobody else could have ever came to that conclusion if it wasn't because of Candace Owens. If I saw a big guy, I'm 6'2", 200 pounds, and I say a person that's 5'10", 165, 175, I know what that looks like. I played basketball for a long time, many different levels. I know what a 5'10", 175 guy look like. And when I seen that guy on the roof, I said, hold on, that ain't no 5'10", 175. But that look like a bigger dude. Oh, that came from Candace, though. That came from Candace. Oh my gosh, bro. Y'all gotta come. If y'all want to have a conversation, y'all gotta come with something better than that. Because the crazy thing is, I'm coming with y'all with a lot of different conversations. The best y'all got is it came from Candace. Okay. I definitely don't trust him. I think Lance knows too. Also, don't think he was asleep all day. No, he wasn't asleep that day. He didn't just magically wake up at 1 p.m. Oh, that came from Candace, though. How dare me think like that? How dare me think a young 22, 21-year-old man waking up at 1 p.m. How dare me say that's odd? Because that's just not strange to me at all. I guess I didn't come to that conclusion without Candace Owens. Like, what are y'all talking about, bro? This guy seems like he's on TV USA side. I mean, I don't know. I just know that he typically leans on the other side than I do. So that's why I was like, shoot, I'm down. You know what I mean? I'm down to chop it up. I always call it like, an open conversation. I don't really say debate. You know what I mean? Like, we ain't debating nothing. We just talk. We just chopping it up. Who do I think was driving the Dodge Challenger? I mean, I don't know. I forgot to bring that up. I forgot. There's so many things that I forgot. Like the Dodge Challenger. What about the doorbell camera footage of the guy saying, yeah, it was a bald guy with 3 other people in the car? What? Oh, Candace Owens. I could not have thought of that, even though it was brought up in the preliminary hearing. Somehow, Candace Owens. Let's just throw it out there, okay? Every sentence has to end with Candace Owens, I guess. Even though they said that in a preliminary hearing, that in the evidence, There was a bald guy with 3 guys in the car with him driving. That's what it appeared to look like. Man, you do not know me. That's why I love talking to everybody, because you do not know me. I'm the last person that just follows anybody. Y'all don't know me, bro. But you can get to know me. You were respectful and kind, Jay. We appreciate that. However, you were outright wrong about a lot of things. What? What was I wrong about? Was I wrong about things that I brought up from the preliminary hearing? What was I wrong about? Just name some things, please, so I can so we can chop it up about it. And I appreciate it though. The majority of the so-called evidence could have been planted. It's not adding up, or circumstantial. It could have been planted. Absolutely. Like that would be the first time in the history of humanity. That's what I'm trying to get people to realize. Like none of this stuff would be the first time ever. So if you can acknowledge that it's happened before, then you need to stop looking at everybody saying that they're crazy for suggesting that it's a possibility. That's disingenuous for y'all to be like, oh, conspiracy theory. Like you're a conspiracy theorist for. So you telling me nobody has ever planted evidence before? Now it's strange that Tyler Robinson is not defending himself, but let's not sit here and act like none of this has ever happened before. As far as planting evidence. Everywhere he's on camera, there will be phone records to prove it was him. You don't know that, but you're assuming there will be. So that's what I'm saying. Like you can't call anybody crazy or whatever when now you're assuming that this is going to happen. I hope it happens, but you don't know. So there's nobody at all. I can't confidently tell anybody to believe what I'm saying. And nobody else on the other side can confidently tell me to believe what they're saying. That's the whole purpose of the trial. Like people are arguing sides. People are getting paid 6 figures to argue these conversations. But then when I bring it up for free on my little YouTube channel, I'm crazy. But then these people get to go in the courtroom and argue these same points for 6 figures, and y'all gonna sit there and watch the trial. I think he turned himself in out of fear, and I believe he may thought he was covering for Lance. I think so too. I think he turned himself in out of fear as well. I know I would if my face was everywhere, and well, I don't know if the timing of it, but like, yeah, I would absolutely turn myself in. I would never want to be on the news as somebody that's armed and dangerous. Like, absolutely not. I'm turning myself in immediately. But that's something that, like, again, that's not true when people say, "Oh, he went and confessed to his parents." No, he didn't. We don't have any proof of that. So if you want to talk about proof, then talk about proof. Talk about what's been presented. He did not confess to his parents. Yet you act as if TPUSA is complicit. Please make it make sense, because they're lying. Why would you have to lie if this guy that is in a gay relationship woke up, drove 3 hours, and pulled the trigger on Charlie? If that was the case, Why is anybody lying? Why are you lying, period? And that's the crazy part. The best part about what happened a couple of Fridays ago with that 4K video is that was a proven lie. All of TPUSA got caught in a lie. It has been proven. So now you have to wonder, why would they do that? How is that not concerning? Some of those people wasn't even at the prelim the whole week. And TPUSA, Erica, flew in all of her influencers, and all of these people at TPUSA was at that day 5 hearing. And then they all came out with the same story. And then that story ended up being a blatant lie. They put money into that, right? They put money into that lie. Everybody got out there. Everybody flew out there. They put money into that lie. Why? What if somebody that wasn't in the courtroom that ended up coming out and tweeting that she was in the courtroom and all that, what if they weren't there? Then we would have just had to believe them. What if the footage from that exhibit wasn't leaked already? What if we had to solely base what we know off of what TPUSA did when they came out of that courtroom? Where would we be right now? How does that not concern any of y'all? For the ones that aren't concerned about that, that is dangerous. That's a dangerous game. We watched propaganda be created and pushed in live time, and we were able to debunk it and move on from it in one day. But nobody's concerned about that. Nobody was concerned about the fact that they were actually trying to push propaganda in live time. Okay. Whatever you say. It's always a conspiracy until it's not. Right? What, y'all ain't just pull up all the Dr. Fauci stuff with COVID in 2020? Oh, that was a conspiracy though, right? Okay. Okay. That was a conspiracy for 6 years. But now that the White House is saying, "Oh, it was a man-made virus. It's official." Now everybody want to go around and say, "Oh, look, guys, look." It's always a conspiracy until it's not. Just because the government and just because law enforcement, the judicial system, just because they don't present it as evidence doesn't mean it's a conspiracy, bro. Y'all can't base everything off of what they tell us and show us. You putting yourself in a box. You better form your own thought. Imagine that. Imagine if we all and there was a life at one time where the only thing people had was the mainstream media. And now COVID happened, and a lot of us, I'm one of them. I didn't get the vaccine. I knew that was BS. I said it from day one. I was a conspiracy theorist, though. Candace Owens probably. I said, bro, that don't make any sense at all. That the virus don't make any sense. That ain't no natural thing. Like, what are you talking? That was for sure man-made. Oh, now you got a vaccine? How you come up with a vaccine that quick? You can't even come up with something for HIV or cancer. I know there's a lot of different strands of cancer, but like you can't come up with a lot of things, cure for a lot of things. Now all of a sudden you got a cure for this thing that just came out. You didn't even know what it was. Now all of a sudden you have a cure for it. Nah, I never believed it, but I was a conspiracy theorist, right? Oh, but now 6 years later, folks trying to give credit to the conspiracy theorists. Oh, y'all were right. No. You stay programmed over there, and you just allow the government to feed you whatever you want throughout your entire life. And watch how far behind you'll be. Imagine the people that just realized that COVID was not necessarily fake, but y'all know what I mean. Imagine the people that just found that out yesterday. Oh my gosh, COVID was man-made? Dogs, you 6 years late? Get out of my face. Can you make sense of how you think TPUSA is involved other than vibes and gossip? Again, uh, it's not really gossip. They're lying. They're lying. Andrew Covett said he talked to the surgeon. The tweet is still there. Go blow his phone up and try to figure out why would he do that. He said the surgeon said Charlie had a strong neck and it was a miracle. A surgeon would never say that. Think about it. Oh man, he had a strong neck. Andrew Covett said that. And the bullet was found just beneath the skin. The surgeon said that, or did the medical examiner say that? Or did the pathologist say that? And why would anybody tell you? But y'all gonna sit here and question me instead of questioning the things that TPUSA got going on. What about the fact that they was placing guilt on Tyler Robinson early on? What about the fact that Erica was on national TV in December and she said, I seen it all. They got the guy. I seen it all. But then y'all must have forgot that on Wednesday of the preliminary hearing, Wednesday or Thursday, the prosecution got up there and demanded more things to be released because Erica and the family have been waiting for so long for evidence to be released. They've been waiting for so long, and this is unfair. And then, so coincidentally and conveniently, the next day, they released a secret video for TPUSA. That don't bother y'all? That don't bother y'all that Erica went on national TV and said, I seen it all. It was him. And then turns out they haven't really seen much. Okay. I guess normal people do that all the time, I guess. My little cousin just had a warrant and he was in the military. The police removed the warrant because they said they didn't want a rookie officer to unalive him, thinking he was dangerous because thinking he was military. Yeah, I mean that's a real thing. Real thing. If you armed and dangerous, according to the news, you better you better run to the police station. TikTok family, I got to turn off the live because I just got a warning. And I got 3% battery. So we on YouTube in the after party if you want to hear some more thoughts and opinions. But I gotta cancel, I gotta turn it off from here though. My son's still asleep, so we still going. Jay, what would it take for you to believe Tyler Robinson did it? You're not doing very good with the forming opinions. Hey, I peeped all your comments, bro. So respectfully, I ain't got nothing to say to you. I saw it all. I don't mind. I you know what I mean, but don't try to get all soft and gentle in questions now, because I saw all your comments, big dog. Keep that same energy with all the stuff you were saying. Right. I mean, you do know what you know a setup is. You know what a conspiracy. That's what they set him up. This is a conspiracy, but it ain't us causing it. It's the FBI. I mean, yeah. Ultimately, this thing is so huge that the FBI would have to be locking each other up. I mean, it's just it's not going to happen. It's too many. That's why I say I agree. There's not going to be, um, much going on as far as in the courtroom. They can't really bring up other people. If they do, it's just gonna be way too much. But we've been said that Tyler Robinson is gonna probably be, he ain't gonna make it out. He confessed 10 times. That's a whole thing because again, if y'all just believe everything that's fed to you, then that's great. But and I'm not saying it's not the truth, but I'm just saying when I saw those messages, I was like, first off, ain't nobody talking the way that they talking to each other in the text messages. Secondly, it doesn't really make any sense because oh, I didn't want to tell you, but I already left you a note underneath the keyboard, but I didn't want to tell you. But then I'm gonna tell you everything right now. Like that doesn't make any sense at all. So, yeah, there's text messages, but it doesn't really make any sense because even the first text message when I forgot what he said, and Lance Twiggs was like, "What? You did it?" or something like that. And it's like, how do you automatically know what Tyler Robinson's talking about? That doesn't make any sense. But sorry for asking logical questions. It must be Candace. It must be Candace. My bad. Well, when you use her exact talking points, it sounds like you might watch her. You might watch her. It sounds like you might be watching Candace because everything I said tonight was thoughts and opinions. She may have said it before. Again, I don't know who y'all think the original thinker is of own thoughts, but she doesn't create everybody's thought process. This is the famous question. So who did it then? That's not the point. Tyler Robinson is in jail, so it's not about me trying to tell y'all who did it. It's just trying to prove that there is reasonable doubt that Tyler Robinson did not pull the trigger. That's the point. I don't have to sit here and make it make sense to you. But yes, you, if you feel like Tyler Robinson did it, have to make it make sense to me. That's how that works. Steakhouse, one witness, no corroborating evidence. I mean, that's the thing. Every time something like that happens, y'all are so quick to dismiss it. That's the crazy part. When the feds give you text messages, y'all are like, oh, look at the text. The feds gave it to us. Then you got somebody that's a regular person in the court in the steakhouse, and they're like, yeah, bro, I saw Tyler Robinson. I served him. And then y'all dissect the hell out of that. Y'all like, no, it's no way. It's no way. There's no possible way that no. This is a lie. This is a lie. And it's like, why the heck do y'all discredit regular people, but y'all got faith in the feds who has a track record of lying as a whole, as an entity. But then when a regular person gives y'all information, y'all immediately discredit them and you don't even know them. But the feds, we know them. I'm not saying they're 100% lying to us all the time, but they have lied to us before plenty of times. But I guess, man, I guess. Yeah, because Andrew never said Charlie ate healthy. That's not in the post. Okay, so do you want to bring up the whole post, or you just want to bring up the one single thing? He said that the surgeon said that he had a very strong neck and it was a miracle. Okay. No surgeon is saying, man, he had a strong neck. A bullet don't care about how strong you are. Okay, especially in the neck. All right, maybe if you get popped in other places where you do have maybe a little bit more muscle than other, I don't know. But a bullet don't care about how strong your neck is. A surgeon is not saying the neck was strong. Man, and Charlie's neck was so strong, man. It was a miracle that nobody behind him was killed. His neck was super strong. Surgeon ain't saying that. But guess who tweeted it? Andrew Kovac. No one can come to these silly conclusions when you actually acknowledge the evidence. I mean, we've been talking about the evidence all night. Nobody in the preliminary hearing. I don't know if like i- is y'all volume working or what? Nobody in the preliminary hearing was able to definitively say that they saw Tyler Robinson with a rifle. Nobody. Nobody said that. Nobody could even pinpoint a rifle on campus. Tyler Robinson's face was in the garage. That was the best picture they had. So when you acknowledge the evidence, you realize, hey, that's not really that damning. He was 5'10". It's on the arrest reports. Well, I mean, what do I know, though? What do I know? Candace Owens. Even though the arrest records are public, they have him on there as 5'10", and he does not look 5'10". Even when you look at him walking through the parking garage, when you look at him walking down the stairs, he does not look 5'10". And it's a big difference if he's actually 6'1", because he looks around the same height as me. So if he's like 6'1", 6'2", I would never be mistaken for somebody that's 5'10". Tyler being involved, but not the shooter, implies a conspiracy of at least two. Yeah, it's a large conspiracy. I mean, you know, I've said it plenty of times that it's dude, 50 plus people involved. You know what I mean? Like huge. That's why it's gonna be impossible to figure it all out. But there's definitely it's definitely more than the gay man driving 3 hours away, doing all of that. Put the rifle in his pants, brought it back out. Is anybody hunting in here? Have you ever had a scope on your gun before? And you just messed up the scope and all of that stuff, putting it in your pants, bringing it out, assembling it, and you don't even zero your scope to make sure it's accurate before you shoot it. Usually you have to do a little practice round to make sure it's zeroed out. He put it in his pants, messed up the scope, put it back together, and took one shot. Okay. Okay. I don't know what happened, but I feel bad for Jay. He gets heat for not agreeing with Candace and also gets heat for coming to the same conclusion she did from basic facts. And man, it's all good. It's nothing new. That's just what happens. That's yeah. It's a crazy world. It's not really a middle ground. Cause yeah, you you said it perfectly. You said it perfectly. That's why I say for the ones that know me, know me. Like I have always been my own person, own thoughts, own opinions. And there are plenty of things that I was like, I don't know about that one, Candace. And folks hate me for it. I'm like, I'm just keeping it real. Don't make sense. Now you got these people that don't know me. They're all saying, "Oh, he's coming from Candace." All this talking about like that you're exposing yourself, right? Because I promise you, I'm not that person. Again, you might want to hang out a little bit longer or maybe another day because I am not angry at all. I'm not angry whatsoever. Wow, this guy's going to start blaming the maroon shirt frat boys and their beehive cult in the Egyptian plains. While this stream is up, why leave this stream up? I'm out. Cannot listen to the fools. Deuces. A lot of people did wear maroon that day. I'm a guy. I don't have any maroon in my closet, but I've also never been to a place where so many people have maroon on. I think that's a valid point. That's not the first choice a guy would wear, but hey, I guess it's normal in y'all's life. And then also the Egyptian planes is real. Erica acknowledged the Egyptian planes that they were real. I guess that's normal in y'all's life as well. Y'all have heard of that plenty of times, right? I've never in my life heard a foreign plane being in United States airspace as often as these Egyptian planes were. And y'all gonna sit here and call Candace crazy. And I'm like, dog, Erica acknowledged that the Egyptian planes was a real thing. And Tucker Carlson, who also does not comment on this Charlie Kirk investigation at all, said, no. I'm not gonna say nothing else about the Charlie Kirk investigation, but the Egyptian planes is real. Dude, all you have to do is pull up the flight tracking radar, whatever website you use. I have flight stuff websites on my computer. I go back to that day all the time. I go back to 9/10 all the time, and I'm like, these are Egyptian planes. Who allowed them in his airspace? And like, that's weird. But I'm assuming the people that make fun of it probably never looked into it themselves, and they just laugh at it. Dan Bongino footage saying he said the picture was gritty. Yeah, Dan Bongino said it too. Dan Bongino literally said the picture was grainy. You can't really see nothing. But you know, Candace Owens. But you have nothing to measure his size by on that roof. Again, speak for yourself. Okay? You're not my size. So all I'm saying is the person in the stairwell versus the person on the roof. I can compare the two. One looks bigger than the other. You can't sit here and be like, you're wrong. Dog. Y'all look crazy. All I'm saying is the person on the roof looks a little bigger. I don't understand why that's the craziest thing in the world to argue. That's what I'm saying. If y'all are so confident, bro, just leave it alone. Cool. My observation is that I'm a bigger guy than 5'10", 175. And all I'm saying is, hey, that guy up there looks a little bigger than 5'10", 175, if you ask me. Then on top of that, that guy on the roof seemed like he had on a jacket. He was covering his head. If Tyler Robinson, he walked in, again, it must be all of Candace Owens. But if he walked on campus for the last time and a black thin long sleeve and blue jeans, then that means that the person on the roof, if you're saying that's Tyler Robinson, that means he changed clothes again. Because on the roof, it was a person that had a jacket on, and you know he had a jacket on because he's a white boy, and you would have been able to see this part of his, at least the white skin from the video if he just had a long sleeve on. But it seemed like he had a jacket on, fully covered. And so now you're going to have to explain him changing clothes on the roof, which we don't have at the moment. Will they be able to prove that? Maybe. But for people like myself to say, hey, bro, that's not the same picture as the guy in the stairwell. Like, that's not the same attire. That's not the same outfit. And y'all to sit here and try to just defend it so bad. It's Tyler Robinson. I'm not saying it ain't Tyler Robinson, bro. I'm just saying at the moment, they're going to have to prove it because the person on the roof got a different outfit than the person in the stairwell. That's not a thin black shirt and blue jeans. That looked like a black jacket with black pants. That person, like, they was in all black. So if you can prove that he changed clothes on the roof and assembled the gun, and okay, then hey, do that. Lance's DNA was not found on the rifle. There were 5 sets of DNA on the rifle. That was in a preliminary hearing. I believe Lance Twiggs is one of them. But, you know, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. However, I'm not wrong about there were 5 sets of prints on the gun that was named off in the preliminary hearing. So That video did come from Candace, and there's 7-minute cut from the video. Y'all do realize there's a video that came straight from the courtroom that everybody already saw. Candace showed a video that was more zoomed in and a little bit more clear. But there is already a video out before Candace dropped that video of the rooftop video. That's what I'm saying, bro. Like, I'm telling y'all from somebody that is usually up to date on all this stuff. So it gets very annoying when like y'all are behind and then y'all are like, there's no video like that. And I'm like, you want me to sit here and argue with you about what I saw? I saw the video. There is a video out there. Go find it yourself. I'm here to talk about that video. Oh, there it is. We could tell that you're parroting talking points from Candace. Doesn't feel us. We've been tracking Candace for a while. Thank you for admitting that y'all have been watching Candace more than I do, apparently. Thank you. Thank you for telling me that. The day after the incident, I seen over 20 content creators saying the security details set him up and Candace didn't even speak, but they seem to blame everything on her. Candace was one of the last people to start like pointing at people. Now, I mean, she started saying it didn't make sense, like maybe like a week or so after that she really got into it in October. But yeah, she was one of the last people to say Erica was weird. I am on record saying Erica was weird. There was plenty of times where I was like, Candace, I think you're kind of weird for thinking that Erica's normal. And then eventually Candace got over into Erica. So I'm like, I don't know, bro. Some of y'all like kind of confusing because y'all swear up and down that y'all watch Candace. I don't think so. Because if y'all did, y'all would know that Candace is most of the time the last person to an accusation because she doesn't want to get in trouble, like the legal side of it. So she allows the internet to do their thing. And then she'll start saying stuff. So, this whole like, oh, you're just repeating what Candace said. I'm like, bro, 99% of the time, the people have already said something before Candace said anything. No, the arrest records said 510. You might be going into conspiracies and content and Candace content. I'm telling you what the arrest record said. It said 510. Okay, you can go look that up if you want to. Lance knows more. He definitely knows more. I'd say he was part of it somehow for sure. Oh, conspiracy theorists. Candace said that. Don't say too much. You sound like Candace. You better relax. How dare you assume that Lance Twiggs is part of something? He has immunity. He's innocent. He didn't do anything. He woke up at 1 p.m. He had no idea. Strange to pave the crime scene. I can't wait for the trial for answers. Let's play with that a little bit. Let's just say it's normal to pave over the crime scene. What's not normal is the guy that paved over the crime scene saying that he got a phone call saying that it was an emergency pave. And you know what? People in Utah don't work on Sundays. That's a culture thing. But we want you to it needs to be done before Monday. So you're gonna have to go out there and do it on Sunday. That's not weird, right? The guy himself said he got a phone call and he said, look, this is the government and the FBI. Don't ask no questions, just get it done. We need it done by Monday. The FBI is telling you to pave over crime scene? Why would they care? Candace Owens. Even though she had nothing to do with that. He was indoctrinated and radicalized. Uh, have y'all been watching the preliminary hearing? Because it sounds like you're a conspiracy theorist. The preliminary hearing said that he didn't even listen to Charlie Kirk. His family is conservative Republicans. So now the conspiracy part is that I don't even think him and Lance was in a relationship, but that's a whole nother story. But as far as him, even Lance Twigg said he never talked about Charlie Kirk. Never talked about Charlie Kirk. He wasn't really into politics. But somehow he was radicalized by the left. He was out there defending his gay boyfriend. Okay, so shouldn't we be questioning the gay boyfriend? What did you say to Tyler Robinson to make Tyler Robinson go do that? If Tyler Robinson feels like he had to go out there and defend you. Oh, Candace Owens. I'm not getting offended at all. I've been on social media for 3+ years, bro. I might sound passionate, but offended, nah, bro. I've I have been called much worse things on social media. I'm not mad, upset, none of that, or else I wouldn't even be here right now if I was sitting here actually pissed off, forcing myself to go live when I could just end the stream and go to bed. Convince me Tyler didn't do it, Jay. That's the thing, bro. I don't have to really convince you that he didn't do it. You have to convince, the jury that he did do it. So if they can do that, then great. But in my opinion, the 30-06 doesn't make sense. The gun doesn't make sense, and he doesn't make sense. That's just in my opinion. But I don't have to sit here and go through all of these different things. There's just a lot of inconsistencies with the entire original narrative for Tyler Robinson to do it. For example, COVID never said the surgeon said the bullet was found just beneath the skin and never happened. I'm not gonna do it. I'm not gonna, because it's just so old, bro. It's so old, and I'm not gonna argue about it. He still has the tweet up. Andrew Kovac quoted the surgeon, and I believe he left the bullet was found just beneath the skin outside of the quote. So matter of fact, oh my gosh. Let me see. If you say so. Let me just pull it up. Andrew Kovac. Bullet was found just beneath the skin. Provide the link. Come on, Grok. Okay, for all of my beautiful people out there, here's for my beautiful people out there. I want to address some of the discussion around about the lack of an exit wound with Charlie. I'm usually not interested in delving into most of this kind of online chatter, and I apologize, it's somewhat graphic, but in case the fact that there wasn't an exit wound, oh, my fault. But in this case, the fact that there wasn't an exit wound is probably another miracle. And I just want people to know. I just spoke with the surgeon who worked on Charlie in the hospital. He said the bullet absolutely should have gone through, which is very, very normal for a high powered rifle, high powered, high velocity round. I've seen wounds from this caliber many times, and they've always just go through everything. This would have taken a moose or two down, an elk, etc., etc. I don't know why I say etc. But it didn't go through. Charlie's body stopped it. I mentioned this to the doctor that there are dozens of staff, students, and special guests standing directly behind Charlie on the other side of the tent. And he replied directly from the surgeon, huh? It was an absolute miracle that someone else didn't get killed. His bone was so healthy and the density was so impressive that he's like the man of steel. It should have just gone through and through. It likely would have killed those standing behind him too. Straight from the surgeon, huh? In the end, the coroner did find the bullet just beneath the skin. Even in death, Charlie managed to save the lives of those around him. Remarkable, miraculous. So like I said, bro, like, you know what I mean? That's why I say I don't want to sit here and just sit here and argue about stuff that y'all aren't educated on. Like y'all are very behind because maybe you're married to a narrative. I'm not married to a narrative, but I do know most of all the angles and all the information to form my own opinion. So please, bro, if you're gonna form an opinion on this Charlie Kirk case, you do need to research on your own so that way you can form an accurate opinion. You can't just sit here and give people your opinion based off of what the police told you or what you saw from the mainstream media. I can't help you with that. Because guess what? Y'all think the mainstream media showed that tweet? They did. They did show that tweet, right? Fox News, all the heavy, pushing propaganda news media outlets. I mean, they all do. But do y'all think the media came out and addressed the fact that the surgeon never said that? No, they didn't. Do y'all think the media should have came out and said, well, Andrew Covett did not say that, or the surgeon did not say that. And I think we need Andrew Covett and Turning Point USA to address the fact that why would you say the surgeon said this when he didn't say that? Why? I mean, please address, correct the record. This is a huge thing right here that you said the surgeon said that he didn't say. Because if he did say it, he would have been violating HIPAA. But no, nobody, the media outlets didn't approach Andrew Covett on that. Nope. When they say 4K, it means clear. You're insinuating what, or you're kind of like assuming what they're saying and thinking. We're not doing that over here. That nobody, that's not what they said. So don't put words in their mouth. Don't try to talk for them. They said out of their mouth, it was 4K, crystal clear footage. We saw Tyler Robinson. We saw his face. You didn't even see his face. Nobody in this chat saw his face. So if none of y'all saw his face, then shouldn't y'all be questioning, well, why did you say you saw his face when you didn't see his face? So now if you're gonna lie to me about that, you might be lying to me about other things. How do y'all thought process not go to that? Like, I can't be on an island by myself, bro. If you can lie to me about something, you can lie to me about everything. Jay, you said there's no 4K footage. They're lying, but you don't know, so you're lying, dude. So I said y'all are kind of behind, bro. There's no 4K footage. Okay. In the preliminary hearing that I sat through every day of the week that week for 9 to 10 hours a day, I had it playing in the background while I was working. What they showed in the courtroom was the same exhibit that they showed earlier that week. They already said it. Then the judge, they wanted to show another one, and the judge said, I don't want to show that to the public because it has too many alterations in the video. There were circles, it was zoomed in, and the judge said he didn't want to show that to the public. But they already said that what the secret video was the same exhibit that they showed earlier that week. And we already saw it. And they came out of the courtroom and said, we saw a 4K video. It was a new video. Y'all never seen this before. We're like, bro, little do y'all know it's already been leaked. Then on top of that, again, y'all are not getting y'all information from everywhere. But I am. So let me present it to you. Brandy, she was in the courtroom, right? Brandy Siciliani. She's on X. She was in the courtroom on that Friday as well. And she literally said, I saw Jack Posobiec, I saw Erica, I saw this person, I saw that person, I saw Benny Johnson. I saw the video. You couldn't see a thing. It was just the same video that we saw earlier that week. A little blob running across the roof. You couldn't see no face. The screen wasn't even crazy big. You couldn't see anything. And she was in the courtroom. But for some reason, y'all don't believe people like her who is not getting paid to push anything. She's a regular person. She's just doing her journalism. And she decided to go in the courtroom to make sure that whatever comes out of the courtroom is real and authentic and not paid and pushed propaganda. And she said it herself. There was no 4K footage. She said, I cannot believe all of these people in TPUSA are coming out here lying. And none of y'all care, though. None of y'all care. Candace Owens. Jay, I think you're a reasonable person, and I shared your discussion while it was live. Even though I disagree with you, you are doing something that is very rare for your side. You are being fair. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Lance said they didn't really talk about politics or LGBT stuff. He said Lance didn't follow politics. Right. I mean, I don't know how that's not strange to everybody else, but I don't know. Man, y'all been commenting like crazy. Let me skip a little bit. I'm just not realizing I'm at like 12:13 and it's 12:50. Y'all been going crazy. The guy, Andrew, who debates, literally said they all lied, and he told all three of them how wrong they were for lying. Oh, yeah, Andrew Wilson. Yeah, right. I mean, again, the biggest question I would have is, why would you lie? I mean, I feel like that's a common, common sense, morals, human thing where you just don't lie, Why would you come out of the courtroom and lie like that? Not a fan of Jack or Benny. Yeah, Jack. Yeah, me either. Erica has a right as a legally recognized victim to be there in court, and that's why she has a victim rights advocate in court to speak on her behalf. I mean, I'm not disputing that, but she did invite, you know, all of her social media influencers to the courtroom too. And that was kind of odd. You know, she gets like 10, 15 seats or something like that. And no family, no nothing. Just straight Turning Point USA employees and influencers. Okay, bro. If that's normal. What time is it? 1 o'clock. I told you we chopping it up because my son's still asleep. I'm still watching him. But he moving though. Yeah, it's getting close. Well, I appreciate y'all for joining, man. Make sure you guys hit the like button before you on your way out, or if you're on your way in, or if you're watching a replay. I appreciate y'all. Make sure you guys hit the sub button as well. We are on the road to 26K, and I appreciate all the support along the way. You can support the channel in many different ways. You can support the channel on buymeacoffee.com. You can find me over there, JD Yapper 1. You can become a member. You can become part of the Yap family as well. And then you can also make sure you follow me on all the socials. I'm on TikTok, 2 different accounts, on YouTube, on X. You can follow me on all that stuff down there. I appreciate y'all for listening. I hope y'all have a beautiful night tonight, beautiful Tuesday tomorrow. I love y'all, and I will see y'all on the next one.